Daniel Cross woke on a stranger's couch with his career ending before his eyes. The woman in the kitchen, his CEO, wore his shirt and nothing else. "You didn't touch me, right?" she asked, voice sharp with accusation. Behind her, a laptop glowed. 50 executives stared through an active video call, silent witnesses to a scene that would destroy him. He'd done nothing wrong. No one would believe that. The truth didn't matter anymore. Only what they'd already decided to see. If you're watching from your city right now, drop a comment below telling me where you're from. I want to see how far Daniel's story travels. Hit that like button and stay until the end, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about doing the right thing. The dawn light cut through floor-to-ceiling windows like an interrogation lamp, turning the Manhattan skyline into a wall of burning glass. Daniel Cross opened his eyes to a ceiling that cost more than his annual salary, coffered, pristine, belonging to a world he visited only as hired help. His neck ached from the leather couch that probably had a 5-figure price tag but offered zero lumbar support. The kind of furniture designed for looking at, not sleeping on. He sat up slowly, his driver's uniform wrinkled beyond redemption, his mouth tasting like regret and cheap coffee from a gas station he'd stopped at 14 hours earlier. The penthouse sprawled around him in that particular silence that only truly expensive spaces achieved, soundproofed, climate-controlled, utterly disconnected from the city's chaos 30 floors below. Then he heard her voice, and his stomach dropped. "You didn't touch me, right?" Vivian Hale stood in the open kitchen, backlit by the morning sun, wearing a white dress shirt that definitely wasn't hers. Her hair, usually pulled into a severe bun that could cut glass, hung loose around her shoulders, dark and disheveled. Her legs were bare. Her expression was harder than the marble countertops. Daniel's throat went dry. "Ms. Hale, It's a simple question, Daniel." Her voice could have frozen water. "Did you touch me last night?" He stood, his hands rising automatically in a gesture of surrender that felt pathetic even as he made it. "No, ma'am. I drove you home like you asked. You needed help getting to the door. I made sure you were safe, left water on the nightstand, and I slept out here. That's all." Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time he noticed she was gripping the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her knuckles had gone white. "That's all," she repeated, her tone suggesting she didn't believe a word. "You expect me to believe that a man—" "Ms. Hale, your laptop." She turned, following his gaze, and went absolutely still. The laptop on the kitchen island glowed with active meeting software. 50 thumbnail videos filled the screen in a neat grid, every member of Hale Industries' senior leadership team, frozen in expressions ranging from shock to poorly concealed satisfaction. The meeting had been going for 6 minutes and 43 seconds, according to the timer in the corner. The camera was on. The microphone was live. They'd heard everything. Vivian's face drained of color. She lunged for the laptop, fingers scrambling across the keyboard, but the damage was done. Daniel watched faces screenshot the moment before the call abruptly ended. Executives he'd driven to airports, board members whose luggage he'd carried, vice presidents who'd never bothered learning his name. All of them witnesses to their CEO in a state of undress, accusing her driver of God knew what. The silence that followed felt like standing in the moment before a car crash, that suspended instant when you knew impact was inevitable but hadn't felt it yet. "This isn't what it looks like," Vivian said, but her voice had lost its edge. She sounded young suddenly, vulnerable in a way Daniel had never heard from the woman who'd built a tech empire before turning 35. "I should go." Daniel moved toward the door, his heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to get out before this situation evolved into something even worse. "Ms. Hale, I promise you nothing happened. I was just trying to help." "Wait." She held up one hand, the other still clutching the shirt closed at her throat. "What do you remember about last night?" Daniel stopped, his hand on the doorknob. What did he remember? Everything, unfortunately. Every excruciating detail of the anniversary gala that had celebrated Hale Industries' 15th year of operation. "You called me at 11:45, he said quietly, not turning around. "You were at the Meridian Hotel, the anniversary party. You said you needed a ride home, that you'd had too much champagne and couldn't drive yourself. I came and got you." And then? You could barely walk, Ms. Hale. The valet helped me get you to the car. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. You talked a lot on the drive, about your father, mostly, about how he would have hated the party, all the fake smiles and champagne toasts. You said you felt like an imposter in your own company. He heard her sharp intake of breath behind him. When we got here, he continued, you couldn't work your key card. I had to take it from you and open the door. You made it to the bedroom doorway and said you felt sick. I got you some water and aspirin from the kitchen. You asked me to stay because you didn't want to be alone, so I stayed. On the couch. That's the whole story. The silence stretched out like a wire pulled too tight. Daniel finally turned around. Vivian was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read, somewhere between disbelief and something that might have been shame. Why didn't you just leave? She asked. Because you asked me to stay, and because… He stopped himself, but she caught it. Because what? Because my daughter Emma is 6 years old and she gets scared at night sometimes. She asked me to stay until she falls asleep. I wouldn't leave her alone when she's vulnerable. I wasn't going to leave you alone either. Something shifted in Vivian's expression, but before she could respond, her phone erupted with notifications. Buzz after buzz after buzz, the sound of a life imploding in real time. She grabbed it from the counter, her face going from pale to gray as she scrolled. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, no. Daniel didn't need to ask. He could imagine the texts, the emails, the instant messages spreading through Hale Industries like wildfire. CEO caught in compromising position with driver. The gossip would be vicious, the speculation worse, and nobody would care about the truth. They'd only care about the story, the scandal, the narrative that fit their preconceived notions about power and privilege and what men and women did behind closed doors. I should really go, Daniel said again. And this time Vivian didn't stop him. He left the penthouse with his dignity barely intact and his future in pieces. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into hell. 30 floors to contemplate how thoroughly his life was about to change, all because he'd tried to do the right thing. The Hale Industries parking garage smelled like concrete and exhaust, and the lingering ghost of expensive perfume from executives who parked here. Daniel's 2015 Honda Civic sat in the staff section, looking embarrassed among the Teslas and BMWs. He sat in the driver's seat for a full 5 minutes before he could make himself turn the key. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen, another driver and the closest thing Daniel had to a friend at Hale Industries. Bro, did you see the email? Check your work account. Daniel's hand shook as he pulled up his email on his phone. There it was, sent at 7:47 a.m. from Jennifer Hartley in Human Resources. Subject line, Immediate suspension pending investigation. Daniel Cross, effective immediately. You are suspended without pay pending an investigation into allegations of professional misconduct. You are not to enter Hale Industries premises or contact any employees during this time. A hearing will be scheduled within 10 business days. HR will be in touch. Professional misconduct. The words sat in his stomach like stones. 15 months of perfect service, never late, never a complaint, and now this. Suspended without pay. He had $463 in his checking account and rent due in 2 weeks. His phone rang. Emma's daycare. He let it go to voicemail, couldn't handle talking to anyone right now, but they called again immediately, the way they only did for emergencies. Mr. Cross? Stephanie, the morning coordinator, sounded stressed. I'm sorry to call so early, but Emma's running a fever, 102. We need you to come pick her up. I'll be right there, Daniel said automatically, already starting the car. The daycare was 15 minutes in good traffic, 30 in morning rush hour. Daniel made it in 22, his mind racing faster than the engine. Suspended without pay meant no health insurance. A fever meant a doctor's visit, maybe antibiotics, money he didn't have for bills he couldn't afford. Emma sat in the sick room looking small and miserable, her frozen backpack clutched to her chest like a shield. She'd inherited her mother's dark curls and delicate features, but she had Daniel's gray eyes, serious eyes, people said, old eyes and a young face. Right now those eyes were glassy with fever, and Daniel's heart cracked right down the middle. Daddy. She reached for him with both arms. I don't feel good. I know, baby girl. Let's get you home, okay? He signed her out, carried her to the car, buckled her into the booster seat with practiced efficiency. She was already falling asleep before he pulled out of the parking lot, her forehead hot against the car seat. Daniel adjusted the air conditioning and tried to remember if they had any children's Tylenol at home. The apartment was what real estate agents called cozy, and what normal people called too damn small. A one-bedroom in Queens that Daniel had converted by hanging a curtain to give Emma the bedroom and taking the living room for himself. His bed was a pull-out couch that had seen better days. The walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors argue in 3 languages. But the landlord didn't ask too many questions, and the rent was almost manageable, and Emma had decorated her half with glow-in-the-dark stars that made her feel safe at night. Daniel got Emma settled on the couch with a damp washcloth on her forehead and a bucket nearby just in case. He found the Tylenol, thank God, and coaxed her into taking it with apple juice. Then he sat on the floor next to the couch, watching her breathe, wondering how the hell he was going to explain to a 6-year-old that Daddy might lose his job because he did something kind. His phone buzzed again. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Is it true? Did you really sleep with Vivian Hale? Then another. Dude, I heard you got caught in her penthouse this morning. Respect. And another. My cousin works at HI. She said you've been fired. That true? Daniel turned his phone face down and pressed his palms against his eyes. The story was spreading, mutating as it went, becoming something darker and more salacious with each retelling. By the time it finished circulating, he'd probably be some kind of predator who'd taken advantage of his drunk boss. Never mind that he'd done nothing. Never mind the truth. The truth didn't matter in stories like this. Only the narrative mattered, and the narrative was already written. By afternoon, Emma's fever had broken, and Daniel's reputation had shattered completely. He made the mistake of checking social media. Someone had leaked a photo, grainy, clearly taken through a window with a telephoto lens showing Daniel carrying Vivian into her building. The angle made it look intimate, his arms around her, her head on his shoulder. The caption read, Hale Industries driver caught in scandal with CEO. Source says relationship has been ongoing for months. The comments were a cesspool. Gold digger spotted, she's gonna destroy him in court. Betty thinks he hit the jackpot. Poor guy probably thought she actually cared, lol. This is what happens when you hire the help. Daniel closed the app before he threw his phone through the window. Emma stirred on the couch, her eyes opening slowly. Daddy? Why do you look sad? He arranged his face into something that hopefully resembled calm. Just work stuff, Emma. Nothing for you to worry about. Is it because of the sick day? I'm sorry I got sick. Baby, no. He moved to sit beside her, pulling her into a gentle hug. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people just get sick. It happens. You always say when people get sick, we take care of them. That's what families do. That's right. And you say we don't let go of people just because things get hard. Daniel's throat tightened. Yeah, Emma, we don't let go. So your work people won't let go of you, right? Even if things are hard? God, the faith in her voice, the absolute certainty that the world was fair, that good behavior got rewarded, that doing the right thing mattered, 6 years old and still believing in justice. I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus, calling instead of texting. Daniel disentangled himself from Emma and stepped into the kitchen to answer. Man, are you okay? Marcus didn't bother with hello. This is insane. Everyone's talking about it. What are they saying? Honestly, you don't want to know. Tell me anyway, Marcus sighed. The official line from HR is inappropriate relationship with a superior, but the unofficial rumors are way worse. People are saying you've been sleeping with her for months, that you got her drunk on purpose, that you, Jesus, Daniel, some people are saying you assaulted her. Daniel's hand tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. I didn't touch her, Marcus. I swear to God, I drove her home and I slept on the couch. That's all. I believe you, man. I know you. But it doesn't matter what I believe. Hartley and HR has already circulated a memo about maintaining professional boundaries and power dynamics in the workplace. They're making an example out of you. Without even hearing my side of the story. When has HR ever cared about the truth? Marcus's voice turned bitter. Remember when Johnson got fired for performance issues right after he filed that safety complaint? These people don't care about what actually happened. They care about liability and optics and making sure the company looks good. Daniel leaned against the counter, exhaustion crashing over him in waves. I'm suspended without pay. I've got Emma's medical bills from when she had pneumonia last winter still on a payment plan. Rent's due in 2 weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do. Listen, I can float you some cash. No. Daniel cut him off gently but firmly. You've got your own family, Marcus. I appreciate it, but I can't take your money. Then what are you going to do? I don't know, Daniel admitted. Wait for the hearing, I guess. Hope that somebody actually cares about the truth. And if they don't? Daniel didn't have an answer for that. After he hung up, he stood in the kitchen and let himself feel the full weight of it, the unfairness, the helplessness, the sick certainty that his life was being dismantled by people who'd already made up their minds. He thought about Vivian Hale standing in her penthouse, wearing his shirt, asking if he'd touched her like the very question was an accusation. He thought about Emma on the couch, fever-flushed and trusting, believing that the world was fair and that her father's goodness would be rewarded. He thought about the photo spreading online, the comments, the assumptions, the story being written about him without his permission or participation. And then he thought about the security cameras. Hale Industries had cameras everywhere, the parking garage, the elevators, the lobby. Vivian's building had them too. Luxury buildings always did, for insurance purposes if nothing else. There would be footage of last night. Footage of him helping a drunk woman to her car, driving her home, carrying her inside. Footage that would prove nothing had happened. But would anyone bother to look? Would anyone care enough to check the truth when the lie was so much more interesting? Daniel pulled out his phone and composed an email to Jennifer Hartley in HR. His hands shook as he typed. Ms. Hartley, I am writing to formally request that security camera footage be reviewed as part of the investigation into allegations against me. I believe footage from last night will clearly show that I behaved professionally and appropriately at all times. I did nothing wrong, and I'm confident the evidence will support this. I'm requesting a fair and thorough investigation. Thank you, Daniel Cross. He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then immediately wondered if it would make any difference at all. The next 3 days were the longest of Daniel's life. Emma's fever broke completely, but she stayed home from daycare anyway, partly because Daniel didn't trust that she was fully recovered, partly because he couldn't afford another day of daycare fees when he wasn't getting paid. They spent the time in the apartment, Emma coloring at the kitchen table while Daniel sent out job applications with an increasingly hollow feeling in his chest. Every application asked if he'd ever been suspended or terminated from a previous position. He left those questions blank and felt like a liar. His phone kept buzzing with texts from numbers he didn't recognize, people who somehow had his personal information and wanted to know the real story. A reporter from some tabloid blog called twice. Daniel blocked the number. Marcus texted updates from work. The investigation was ongoing, HR was interviewing people. Vivian Hale hadn't been seen in the office since the incident. The rumor mill was in overdrive, generating increasingly lurid versions of events. In some versions, Daniel was a mastermind who'd orchestrated the whole thing. In others, he was a victim of Vivian's predatory behavior. Nobody seemed interested in the boring truth that sometimes people just helped other people, and nothing more complicated happened than that. On the third day, Daniel's phone rang with a call from Hale Industries. His heart jumped into his throat. Mr. Cross, this is Jennifer Hartley from Human Resources. Your hearing has been scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. You'll meet with a panel consisting of myself, our legal counsel, and a representative from senior leadership. Please arrive 30 minutes early to review documentation. Do you have any questions? Daniel had about 1,000 questions, but his mouth had gone dry. Will there be security footage reviewed? A pause. All relevant evidence will be considered. 2 p.m. tomorrow, Mr. Cross. Don't be late. She hung up before he could respond. Daniel set the phone down carefully, his hands trembling. Tomorrow. 24 hours to wait, to wonder, to hope that someone would actually look at the evidence instead of just the story. Emma looked up from her coloring. Daddy, you're shaking. I'm okay, baby. You don't look okay. Daniel sat down across from her, studying the picture she was working on. A house with a triangle roof and square windows, two stick figures holding hands in front of it. One tall, one small. "Is that us?" he asked. "Yeah, that's you and me in front of our house." "It's beautiful, Emma." She considered the drawing seriously. "I made us holding hands because you say we don't let go of people, even when things are hard." Something in Daniel's chest cracked open. He looked at his daughter, 6 years old, motherless since she was 2, living in a one-bedroom apartment with a father who drove other people's cars for a living, and saw absolute faith in her eyes. Faith that he would figure this out. Faith that doing the right thing mattered. Faith that the world was fundamentally fair. He couldn't let her down. "You're right," he said quietly. "We don't let go. No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to remember that, okay? We don't let go of people." "I know, Daddy." She went back to coloring. "That's what makes us different," she said. The hearing room at Hale Industries was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, a conference table that could seat 20, leather chairs that cost more than Daniel's car. Jennifer Hartley sat at the head of the table in a severe black suit, flanked by a silver-haired man Daniel recognized as Thomas Chen, the company's general counsel. The third chair held someone Daniel had never seen before, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every corporate scandal imaginable and been impressed by none of them. "Mr. Cross, thank you for being punctual." Hartley gestured to a chair across from them. "This is Sandra Morrison, our VP of Corporate Ethics. We'll be conducting today's hearing." Daniel sat, acutely aware that his suit, the one he wore to job interviews and funerals, was off the rack and 5 years old. In this room, surrounded by people who wore power-like tailored armor, he felt like exactly what he was, hired help who'd stepped out of his lane. "Let's begin," Hartley said, opening a folder. "Mr. Cross, you've been suspended pending investigation into allegations of professional misconduct, specifically an inappropriate relationship with CEO Vivian Hale. Do you understand the nature of these allegations?" "Yes, ma'am." "And do you deny them?" "Absolutely. Nothing inappropriate happened." Thomas Chen leaned forward, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. "Mr. Cross, you were found in Ms. Hale's penthouse at 7 a.m. wearing yesterday's clothes. Ms. Hale was in a state of undress wearing what appears to have been your shirt. Can you explain these circumstances?" Daniel took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "Ms. Hale called me at 11:45 p.m. on the night of the anniversary gala. She requested a ride home. When I arrived at the Meridian Hotel, she was intoxicated and needed assistance getting to the car. I drove her home. She had difficulty with her keycard, so I helped her enter her apartment. She felt unwell, so I got her water and aspirin. She asked me to stay because she didn't want to be alone. I stayed on the couch. That's everything that happened." "And your shirt?" Morrison asked, speaking for the first time. Her voice was cool, clinical. "I don't know how she ended up wearing it. When I woke up, she was already in the kitchen. I was on the couch. I hadn't moved all night." Hartley made a note. "Mr. Cross, several employees have come forward with testimony suggesting this wasn't an isolated incident, that you and Ms. Hale have had an ongoing inappropriate relationship." Daniel's stomach dropped. "That's not true. We have statements from 3 separate employees who claim to have witnessed intimate behavior between you and Ms. Hale over the past 6 months." "Then they're lying." Daniel's voice came out harder than he intended. "I've driven Ms. Hale to appointments and events. That's my job. But there has never been anything inappropriate between us. Ever." Chen exchanged a glance with Hartley. "Mr. Cross, I'm going to be frank with you. The optics of this situation are extremely bad for Hale Industries. We have a CEO found in a compromising position with a subordinate employee. Whether or not anything physically happened, the appearance of impropriety is—" "I requested security footage be reviewed," Daniel interrupted. "I sent an email to Ms. Hartley 3 days ago. Cameras in the parking garage, the hotel valet area, Ms. Hale's building, they'll all show exactly what I just told you. Nothing happened." A long silence. Hartley and Chen exchanged another look, this one longer. "About that," Hartley said slowly, "we did review the footage." Daniel's heart started pounding. "And?" and it corroborates your version of events. The footage shows you helping Ms. Hale to the car, driving her home, and assisting her into the building. You're seen leaving the building at 7:47 the next morning. Relief crashed over Daniel like a wave. Then you know I'm telling the truth. The footage supports your claim that nothing physical occurred, Chen said carefully. However, it doesn't address the broader issue of professional boundaries. You spent the night in your supervisor's apartment. You were found there by senior leadership during an active video call. The perception of impropriety, perception, Daniel felt anger rising, hot and righteous. I did my job. A person needed help and I helped them. That's all. And now I'm being punished because other people decided to make assumptions? Mr. Cross, please keep your voice down. No. Daniel stood, his chair scraping backward. No, I won't keep my voice down. You have footage proving I did nothing wrong. You have my statement. You have the truth. But you're still going to fire me, aren't you? Because it's easier to blame me than to admit that your CEO made a mistake. Because I'm replaceable and she's not. Morrison spoke quietly. Mr. Cross, please sit down. Why should I? So you can tell me that my honesty doesn't matter? That doing the right thing was actually the wrong choice because it looked bad? He was shaking now, months of careful professionalism cracking apart. I have a 6-year-old daughter at home. I'm a single father. I can't afford to lose this job, but I'm going to lose it anyway because I made the mistake of being kind to someone who needed help. Mr. Cross, the conference room door opened. Vivian Hale walked in. She looked different than Daniel had ever seen her. No power suit, no severe bun, no armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup. She wore jeans and a simple black sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired. She looked human. This hearing is over, she said. Hartley stood. Ms. Hale, with respect, this is a formal HR investigation. You can't just, I can, and I am. Vivian's voice carried the steel that had built a tech empire. Mr. Cross is telling the truth. I've reviewed the security footage myself. All of it. Every angle. Every timestamp. He did exactly what he said. He helped me when I needed help, and he behaved with complete professionalism. If anyone should be suspended, it's me for putting him in this position. Ms. Hale, Chen began, the board is concerned about... The board will be more concerned when I tell them I'm prepared to testify in Mr. Cross's favor if he decides to pursue legal action for wrongful termination. Vivian's eyes were cold fire. Which he would win, by the way, given that we have video evidence of his innocence and a paper trail of an investigation that proceeded with bias despite that evidence. The room went very quiet. Daniel Cross is not fired, Vivian continued. He's not suspended. He's returning to work with full back pay for the time he missed. And if I find out that anyone in this company has retaliated against him in any way, I will personally ensure that person's career at Hale Industries ends immediately. Are we clear? Hartley's jaw worked. Ms. Hale, the perception issues will be addressed in a company-wide email I'm sending this afternoon. I will take full responsibility for the situation and make it clear that Mr. Cross acted appropriately. Now, is there anything else? Nobody spoke. Good. This hearing is concluded. Vivian looked at Daniel. Mr. Cross, would you mind waiting outside for a moment? I need to speak with these three privately. Daniel nodded, his mind reeling, and walked out into the hallway on legs that felt like water. He leaned against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. 5 minutes later, Vivian emerged. She looked at him for a long moment. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. Several apologies, actually. Ms. Hale, you don't... I do. She cut him off gently. I accused you of something terrible when I had no reason to. I let other people make assumptions about your character without defending you. I put you in a position where you could have lost everything, all because you did me a kindness I didn't deserve. Daniel didn't know what to say. The truth is, Vivian continued, I was scared. I woke up in my apartment with gaps in my memory and a man I barely knew on my couch. My first instinct was to protect myself, and I did that at your expense. That was wrong. You deserved better. You were vulnerable, Daniel said. People get defensive when they're vulnerable. That doesn't excuse it. Vivian looked down at her hands. I reviewed all the security footage, everything from the parking garage to my building. I saw you catch me when I stumbled. I saw you take your jacket off and put it around me when the wind picked up. I saw you wait outside my building for 20 minutes to make sure the doorman let me in safely. You were... Her voice cracked slightly. You were kind, and I repaid that with suspicion and humiliation. Ms. Hale. Vivian. After everything, I think you can call me Vivian. Daniel managed a weak smile. I'm just glad it's over. It's not over, Vivian said. Not yet. I need to fix this properly. But first I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you going to sue the company? What? No, I just want my job back. You'd have grounds. A good lawyer would take the case in a heartbeat. I don't want to sue anyone. I want to go back to work, pick up my daughter from daycare, and forget this ever happened. Vivian studied him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're an unusual person, Daniel Cross. I'm really not. I'm just a guy who tries to do the right thing. In my experience, that makes you very unusual indeed. She straightened her shoulders, and just like that, the CEO returned, confident, composed, in control. You're back on the schedule starting tomorrow. Full back pay will be processed by end of day. And Daniel, thank you for helping me, for telling the truth, for being exactly who you are. She walked away before he could respond, leaving Daniel standing in the hallway, wondering if any of this had actually just happened. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma's school. Mr. Cross, Emma says you had a good day at work today. She wanted us to tell you she's proud of you. Daniel looked at the message for a long time. Then he wrote back, tell her I'm proud of her too, and that we don't let go of people. The response came quickly. She says she knows. That's what makes you different. Daniel smiled, pocketed his phone, and walked out of Hale Industries with his head held high. The company-wide email arrived at 4:47 p.m., just as Daniel was pulling into the daycare parking lot to pick up Emma. His phone buzzed with the notification, and he almost ignored it. Another work email could wait until tomorrow, his first official day back. But something made him open it, maybe the sender's name, Vivian Hale. Subject: clarification regarding recent events. To all Hale Industries employees. Last week, a situation occurred that has resulted in speculation and rumors throughout our company. I am writing to address this directly and set the record straight. On the evening of our anniversary gala, I made the poor decision to drink excessively. I called one of our drivers, Daniel Cross, to request a ride home. Mr. Cross responded professionally and ensured I arrived home safely. He acted with complete propriety and respect. Nothing inappropriate occurred. Despite video evidence confirming these facts, Mr. Cross was subjected to suspension and an investigation based purely on assumptions and gossip. This was unfair and wrong. I take full responsibility for placing him in a position where his reputation could be questioned. Effective immediately, Mr. Cross is reinstated with full back pay and a formal apology from this company. Anyone found spreading false information about him or retaliating against him in any way will face immediate disciplinary action up to and including termination. This incident has revealed serious flaws in how we handle workplace investigations and employee dignity. We will be conducting a comprehensive review of our HR policies and procedures. More information will follow. I expect every employee of Hale Industries to treat Mr. Cross with the respect and professionalism he deserves. No exceptions. Vivian Hale, CEO. Daniel read it twice, then a third time. The words blurred slightly. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed this. Not just the vindication, but the public acknowledgement that he'd done nothing wrong, that his character mattered, that the truth actually counted for something. His phone immediately started buzzing with texts. Marcus. Holy shit, man, she actually did it. An unknown number. Yo, I'm sorry about what I said before. My bad. Another unknown number. Respect to you, Daniel. Takes guts to do the right thing. And then surprisingly, from Jennifer Hartley in HR. Mr. Cross, your reinstatement paperwork is ready. Welcome back. Daniel sat in the parking lot for another minute, letting it all sink in, before he went inside to get Emma. She ran to him the moment she saw him, backpack bouncing against her shoulders, curls flying. Daddy, Mrs. Patterson said you had a really good day. I did, baby girl. A really good day. Does that mean you're not sad anymore? Daniel picked her up, hugging her tight, despite the fact that she was getting too big for this, that soon she'd be embarrassed by public displays of affection. I'm not sad anymore. Good. She pulled back to look at his face seriously. Because you look better when you smile. Yeah? Well, you look better when you smile too. She grinned, gap-toothed and perfect, and Daniel felt something in his chest finally unclench. Everything was going to be okay. Maybe not perfect, maybe not easy, but okay. They went home and made spaghetti for dinner, the kind from a box with jarred sauce, nothing fancy but Emma's favorite. She chattered about her day while Daniel listened, contributing enough to show he was paying attention, but mostly just enjoying the sound of her voice, the normalcy of it all. This was what mattered, not corporate politics or public perception or who believed what about whom. Just this, a small kitchen, cheap pasta, his daughter's laughter. After Emma went to bed, Daniel sat on his pull-out couch and finally let himself feel the full weight of relief. The past week had been a special kind of hell, the suspension, the rumors, the fear of losing everything. But he'd survived it. More than that, he'd been vindicated. The truth had actually mattered. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from a number he didn't recognize, but the message made it clear who it was. This is Vivian. I got your number from HR. Hope that's okay. I wanted to say again that I'm sorry for what you went through. You deserved better. If there's anything I can do to make this right, please let me know. Daniel stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. You already made it right. The email was more than enough. Thank you. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. That email was the bare minimum of what I owed you. I'd like to do more. Would you be willing to meet for coffee sometime this week? No pressure, but I'd like to explain some things properly. Away from the office. Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him to decline politely, to keep his distance, to not blur any more lines between professional and personal. But something else. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the memory of Vivian's vulnerability that night, maybe just human decency, made him type, Sure. When works for you? Thursday morning? There's a place called Birch Coffee near Columbus Circle. 9 a.m.? I'll be there. He set the phone down and wondered what he'd just agreed to. Thursday morning arrived cold and bright, one of those October days where the air felt like possibility. Daniel dropped Emma at school early, then took the subway into Manhattan. Birch Coffee was the kind of place where drinks cost $8 and everyone had a laptop, exposed brick, minimalist furniture, baristas with carefully curated facial hair. Daniel felt out of place in his work jacket and Timberland boots, but he found Vivian already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. I didn't know what you liked, she said as he approached, so I got you a regular coffee. Black. But I can get you something else if... Black's perfect. Thank you. Daniel sat down, accepting the cup. It was good coffee, better than the gas station stuff he usually drank. Vivian looked different in civilian clothes. Designer jeans and a cream-colored sweater, minimal makeup, hair down around her shoulders. Without the CEO armor, she looked younger, more approachable, also more nervous, Daniel realized. She was gripping her own cup like a lifeline. Thank you for coming, she said. I know this is awkward. A little, Daniel admitted, but I appreciate you reaching out. I wanted to explain what happened that night, not to make excuses, but because you deserve to know the whole story. Vivian took a breath. The anniversary gala was the 15th year of Hale Industries. My father started the company 30 years ago, and I took it over when he died 10 years back. Every year on the anniversary, I feel like I'm supposed to be celebrating, but really, I just feel like a fraud. Daniel stayed quiet, letting her talk. My father was brilliant, Vivian continued, her voice softer now. Ruthless, difficult, impossible to please, but brilliant. He built Hale Industries from nothing, and when he died, he left it to me, his only child, who'd spent her whole life trying to prove she was smart enough, capable enough, worthy enough. 10 years later, I've tripled the company's value, expanded into 6 new markets, and I still feel like I'm faking it. Like any minute, everyone will realize I'm just playing dress-up in my father's company. Imposter syndrome, Daniel said quietly. Is that what it's called? Vivian smiled without humor. I call it Tuesday. You've tripled the company's value. Doesn't sound like an imposter to me. Numbers are easy. Leadership is hard. My father knew how to make people fear him. I never learned that skill, so instead I make them need me, keep myself indispensable, work 80-hour weeks so nobody can say I don't deserve this position. She paused. That night at the gala, everyone was toasting the company's success, praising my leadership, telling me how proud my father would be. And all I could think was that he'd be disappointed, that I'd made his company softer, more ethical, less ruthlessly profitable, that I'd failed him. So you got drunk? So I got drunk, Vivian confirmed. Very drunk. And I called you because… She stopped, seeming to choose her words carefully. Because in 15 months of you driving me places, you've never once treated me like the CEO. You treat me like a person. You ask how my day was. You remember things I tell you. You're kind without expecting anything in return. And that night, I needed someone who would see me as a person, not a position. Daniel absorbed this. I'm just doing my job. No, you're not. Your job is to drive. Everything else you do, the kindness, the courtesy, the genuine interest, that's you choosing to be a good person. And I took advantage of that. I called you late at night, put you in an impossible situation, and then when I woke up scared and confused, I lashed out at you. I made you pay for my vulnerability. You apologized already. We're good. Are we? Vivian looked at him directly. Daniel, you were suspended without pay. You were investigated, humiliated, had your reputation dragged through the mud. I sent one email and think that makes us even? You also saved my job. I returned something that never should have been taken away in the first place. That's not generosity. That's basic decency. She set her coffee down. I want to make this actually right. I'm creating a new position at Hale Industries, Director of Ethics and Professional Standards. The job would involve reviewing our HR policies, conducting training on workplace respect and dignity, acting as an advocate for employees who feel they've been treated unfairly. I want you to take it. Daniel stared at her. What? You'd be salaried, not hourly. Full benefits, retirement matching, the works. You'd report directly to me, which means nobody can retaliate against you or undermine your authority. And you'd have real power to change how this company treats people. Vivian, I'm a driver. I don't have a college degree. I don't have any experience with… You have the exact experience this position needs, Vivian interrupted. You've been on the receiving end of how badly we handle workplace issues. You know what it feels like to be powerless, to have your word questioned, to watch policy protect the powerful instead of the truth. You have integrity, compassion, and you actually care about doing the right thing even when it costs you. That's worth more than any business degree. Daniel's head was spinning. This is insane. It's overdue. Our company culture is broken, Daniel. The fact that you could be suspended based on gossip while video evidence sat unreviewed proves that. I need someone who will fix that, someone I trust, someone who won't be corrupted by power or intimidated by executives. She leaned forward. I'm not offering you this because I feel guilty, though I do. I'm offering it because you're the right person for the job. But if you don't want it, I'll understand. No pressure. Daniel sat back, his mind racing. Director of Ethics and Professional Standards, a real salary, benefits, the ability to help other people who found themselves in situations like his. But also, people will say I slept my way into the position, he said bluntly. They'll say you're giving me this because we're involved. Let them say it. We'll know the truth. And I'll make sure the announcement is clear that this position was created as part of our policy overhaul, not as a favor. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I can't work 80-hour weeks. The position is 9 to 5, flexible scheduling for family needs. I meant what I said about work-life balance. Daniel looked at Vivian, really looked at her, and saw someone genuinely trying to do the right thing. Someone who'd made mistakes but was owning them. Someone offering him not just a job, but a chance to make a real difference. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course, to take all the time you need. Oh, Vivian stood, gathering her things. My number's in your phone now. Call me when you've decided. Vivian? Daniel stood too. Thank you for this, for the email, for everything. You didn't have to go this far. Yes, I did, she said simply. You went far for me when I needed help. Now I'm doing the same for you. That's how it's supposed to work. She left the coffee shop, and Daniel sat back down to finish his coffee and contemplate a future he'd never imagined. Emma's reaction that evening was predictably enthusiastic. You'd be a director? She said the word carefully, like tasting something new. That's even better than a driver. It's different than a driver, Daniel corrected gently. They were sitting at the kitchen table, Emma working on homework while Daniel made dinner. Not necessarily better, but you'd help people who are sad like you were sad. Yeah, something like that. Then it's better. Emma's logic was unassailable. When people are sad, helping them is always better. Daniel smiled despite himself. When did you get so wise? I'm 6 3/4. That's almost 7. She returned to her math worksheet with the confidence of someone who'd solved all of life's important problems. Later, after Emma was asleep, Daniel sat on his pull-out couch and made a list. It's what he did when facing big decisions. Wrote out the pros and cons, tried to see things clearly. Old habit from his military days, before civilian life got so complicated. Pros: real salary, benefits, health insurance for Emma, the ability to actually save money, build a future, a chance to help other people, work that mattered beyond just driving people from point A to point B. Cons: higher profile meant higher scrutiny. Everyone would watch him, waiting for him to fail or prove their suspicions right. It would be harder to just blend in, be invisible, protect Emma from the complications of his work life. But the biggest con wasn't on the list. It was the question Daniel couldn't quite articulate. What did Vivian Hale really want? The job offer seemed genuine, her reasoning sound. But there was something else there, something in the way she'd looked at him across the coffee shop table. Not attraction exactly. Daniel wasn't arrogant enough to assume that. But connection, maybe. Recognition. Like she saw something in him that surprised her. And that made him nervous. Daniel pulled out his phone and called the one person whose judgment he trusted completely. Marcus answered on the second ring. Please tell me you're calling to say you accepted. How do you know about the offer? Man, everyone knows. Vivian sent an email to senior leadership about creating the position. People are losing their minds. Some think it's brilliant. Some think she's lost it. Most are just confused about why a driver is suddenly getting a director-level job. See, that's exactly the problem. What problem? People thinking I don't deserve it, that I'm only getting it because of what happened. Marcus made a frustrated sound. Daniel, listen to me. You're the most honest person I've ever met. You got screwed over by this company, and instead of suing or making a scene, you just wanted your job back. Vivian's trying to fix a broken system, and she's smart enough to know the best person to fix it is someone who got broken by it. This isn't charity, it's good business. I don't have the qualifications. You have the only qualification that matters. You give a damn about doing the right thing. The rest you can learn. Marcus paused. But I get it, man. You're scared. I'm not scared. You're terrified. You've spent your whole life trying not to stand out, not to make waves. Just do your job and go home to Emma. This would put you right in the spotlight. That's scary as hell. Daniel didn't respond because Marcus was right. But here's what I know about you, Marcus continued. You didn't have to help Vivian that night. You could have called another driver, sent a car service, let someone else deal with the drunk CEO. But you didn't, because that's not who you are. You help people. You do the right thing even when it costs you. This job? It's just you doing that on a bigger scale. What if I fail? Then you fail. But Emma will still be proud of you for trying. And honestly, I think you'll be great at it. You've got something most executives don't have. You actually understand what it's like to be powerless in this company. Use that. After they hung up, Daniel sat for a long time in the dark apartment, thinking about power and helplessness, about doing the right thing, about the example he wanted to set for Emma. His daughter believed the world was fair. She believed kindness mattered, that good people got rewarded, that her father could fix anything. And maybe the world wasn't actually fair. Daniel knew that better than most. But didn't he owe it to Emma to try to make it fairer? To take the power being offered and use it to help people who had none? He picked up his phone and texted Vivian before he could second-guess himself. I accept. When do I start? The response came almost immediately. Monday. And Daniel? Thank you. You won't regret this. Daniel hoped she was right. Chant. The announcement went out Friday afternoon, and by Monday morning, everyone at Hale Industries had an opinion about it. Daniel arrived at 8:30 a.m. to find he had an actual office, not huge, but private, with a window overlooking Midtown and furniture that didn't look like it came from a discount warehouse. His name was already on the door. Daniel Cross, Director of Ethics and Professional Standards. He stood in the doorway for a moment, still not quite believing this was real. Congratulations. Daniel turned to find Sandra Morrison, the VP who'd been at his hearing, standing behind him with 2 cups of coffee. She offered him one. Wasn't sure how you took it, so I guessed. Cream and sugar. That's perfect, actually. Thank you. Daniel accepted the cup cautiously, unsure of her angle. I wanted to apologize, Morrison said directly. At your hearing, I should have pushed harder to review the evidence before making judgments. I failed you, and I'm sorry. You were doing your job. My job is to ensure fair treatment of employees. I didn't do that. She gestured to his office. Mind if I come in? I'd like to brief you on some things before your official start. They sat across from each other, and Morrison pulled out a tablet. I've been with Hale Industries for 8 years. In that time, I've watched our HR policies become increasingly focused on protecting the company rather than supporting employees. Your case was the worst example, but it wasn't the first. We've mishandled harassment complaints, ignored safety concerns, and prioritized executives over frontline workers consistently. Why are you telling me this? Because Vivian asked me to help you succeed, and I actually want to. What happened to you was wrong. If you can fix the systems that allowed it, you'll have my full support. Morrison swiped through screens on her tablet. I've compiled a list of cases from the past 3 years where our HR response was questionable. I think they'd be good starting points for your review. Daniel took the tablet, scanning the list. A harassment complaint dismissed because no one else witnessed it. A safety violation ignored because fixing it would cost too much. An employee fired for performance issues days after filing a discrimination complaint. Case after case of people being failed by the very systems meant to protect them. This is worse than I thought, Daniel said quietly. It's what happens when companies prioritize liability over people. We became so focused on avoiding lawsuits that we forgot about basic decency. Morrison stood. Your first meeting is at 10. Vivian wants to go over your mandate and resources. But Daniel, don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong here. This company needs someone who remembers what it's like to be powerless. Use that. After she left, Daniel sat in his new office and looked at the list of failed employees, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. These were real people whose lives had been damaged by policies and procedures and corporate indifference. People like him, only they hadn't been lucky enough to have video evidence or a CEO willing to fight for them. He thought about Emma's words. When people are sad, helping them is always better. His daughter made it sound so simple. Maybe it was. At 9:55, Daniel headed to Vivian's office on the executive floor. Another world of hushed conversations and expensive art. Her assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, waved him through immediately. She's expecting you. Go right in. Vivian's office was exactly what Daniel expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, walls covered with awards and patents, and photos of ribbon cuttings. But there were also personal touches. A small succulent garden on the windowsill, a framed photo of a man Daniel assumed was her father, a shelf of worn paperbacks that suggested she actually read for pleasure. Daniel, come in. Vivian stood from behind her desk, gesturing to a seating area by the windows. How's your first day? Overwhelming, Daniel admitted. Morrison gave me a list of cases to review. It's bad, Vivian. I know. That's why this position exists. She sat across from him, all business now. Your mandate is simple. Fix our culture. Make Hale Industries a place where people feel safe reporting problems, where investigations are fair, where dignity matters more than optics. I'm giving you full authority to review any HR case from the past 5 years, interview any employee, and make recommendations directly to me. You'll have an operating budget and the ability to hire a small team if needed. What kind of budget? $200,000 for the first year. More if you need it. Daniel's head spun. 6 months ago, he'd been worried about making rent, and now he was being handed a $200,000 budget. There will be resistance, Vivian continued. Some executives will see you as a threat. Some will dismiss you because of your background. HR will be defensive because you're essentially auditing their failures. You need to be prepared for that. I've dealt with worse than corporate politics. I know you have. That's why I trust you to handle this. Vivian leaned forward slightly. But Daniel, I need you to promise me something. If you find problems that implicate me, decisions I made, policies I approved, you call them out anyway. No special treatment. The whole point of this position is to create accountability. That includes holding me accountable. You're serious? Completely. This only works if you have real independence and everyone knows it. She smiled slightly. Besides, I've reviewed my own decisions. I know I've made mistakes. I'd rather you find them and fix them than have them blow up later. Daniel studied her. This woman who'd built an empire and was now voluntarily subjecting herself to scrutiny from someone who'd been her driver 2 weeks ago. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly naive, and he wasn't sure which. Okay, he said. I'll treat you exactly like I'd treat anyone else. Good. That's all I ask. Vivian stood, signaling the meeting's end. Patricia has your IT access and security clearance. Morrison will introduce you to the HR team this afternoon. And Daniel? Welcome to the executive floor. Try not to let it change you. Not likely, Daniel said. I've got a 6-year-old who'll keep me humble. Emma, right? At Daniel's surprised look, Vivian smiled. You mentioned her at the hearing, the daughter who asked you to stay until she fell asleep. She sounds special. She is. She's everything. Bring her by sometime. I'd like to meet the person who taught you not to let go of people. Daniel left the office feeling slightly off balance. Vivian Hale kept surprising him, her vulnerability, her integrity, her willingness to be held accountable. He'd built a career on reading people, on understanding what they wanted, and he still couldn't quite figure her out. But maybe that was okay. Maybe he didn't need to understand her, just work with her. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's school. Mr. Cross, Emma wanted us to tell you good luck on your first day at your new job. She says she knows you'll be great because you always help people. Mrs. Patterson. Daniel smiled and texted back. Tell her I'm doing my best and that we don't let go. The response came quickly. She says she knows. That's what makes you different. Daniel pocketed his phone and went to meet the HR team, ready to start fixing a broken system one case at a time, carrying his daughter's faith like armor. The HR team sat around the conference table like defendants awaiting sentencing. Jennifer Hartley occupied the head position, her posture rigid, while 4 other HR specialists flanked her on either side, 2 men in their 40s who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, and 2 younger women who kept glancing at Daniel with poorly concealed curiosity. Sandra Morrison stood near the window, arms crossed, watching the dynamic with clinical interest. Daniel took the remaining seat, acutely aware that every person in this room had either participated in his suspension or remained silent while it happened. The air felt thick with unspoken resentment and defensive anticipation. Thank you all for making time, Daniel began, keeping his voice level and professional. I know this situation is unusual. A month ago, I was a driver, and now I'm here to review how this department operates. I'm sure that feels threatening. Hartley's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. We're prepared to cooperate fully with whatever audit you feel is necessary, Mr. Cross. This isn't an audit, Ms. Hartley. It's a conversation. Daniel pulled out the tablet Morrison had given him. I've reviewed 53 cases from the past 3 years where employees filed complaints or raised concerns. In 41 of those cases, the company's response was to protect itself rather than investigate fairly. I'd like to understand why. One of the younger women, her nameplate read Sarah Chen, spoke up hesitantly. Mr. Cross, our job is to minimize company liability. When employees make accusations without clear evidence, I was accused without clear evidence, Daniel interrupted gently. I was suspended, investigated, and nearly fired before anyone bothered checking the security footage that proved my innocence. If Ms. Hale hadn't intervened, I'd be unemployed right now despite doing nothing wrong. Does that seem like an acceptable outcome? Silence. Let me be clear about something, Daniel continued. I'm not here to fire anyone or assign blame for past mistakes. I'm here to fix a broken system so future employees don't go through what I went through. But that requires honesty. I need you to tell me the truth about how things actually work here, not how the employee handbook says they should work. The older man on the left, Robert Torres, according to his nameplate, leaned forward. You want honesty? Fine. We're understaffed and overworked. We handle complaints for 12,000 employees with a team of 5 people. When someone files a harassment complaint or reports a safety issue, we're supposed to conduct thorough investigations while also processing benefits, managing recruitment, handling payroll issues, and dealing with executive requests that always take priority. Something has to give, and usually what gives is the thorough investigation part. So you take shortcuts, Daniel said. We make risk assessments, Hartley corrected coolly. If a complaint seems minor or lacks corroboration, we handle it with minimal resources. If it could result in a lawsuit, we dedicate more attention. That's standard HR practice across the industry. And who decides what's minor, what lacks corroboration? We do, based on experience and judgment. Ms. Hartley, my complaint lacked corroboration initially. It was your judgment that suspended me without reviewing available evidence. How is that different from the other cases where you made judgment calls that hurt innocent people? Hartley's face flushed. Your case was high profile. It involved the CEO. The optics required immediate action. So, protecting the company's image mattered more than protecting an employee's livelihood? That's not what I said. But it's what you did. Daniel kept his voice calm, factual. And according to these records, it's what this department has done repeatedly. Dismissed harassment claims because investigating them might embarrass an executive. Ignored safety violations because fixing them would be expensive. Prioritized optics over truth. That's not HR malpractice. That's systematic failure to protect the people this department exists to serve. Sarah Chen looked like she might cry. Robert Torres stared at the table. The other staffers shifted uncomfortably. Only Hartley maintained her composure, though her knuckles had gone white where she gripped her pen. Mr. Cross, she said icily, what exactly do you propose we do differently? We work with the resources we're given. We follow established protocols. If you think you can do better, I think we can do better, Daniel corrected. And here's how we start. From now on, every complaint filed with HR gets logged in a centralized database with full documentation. Every investigation includes a written timeline showing what steps were taken and when. Every decision to dismiss or deprioritize a complaint requires written justification. And every case file gets reviewed quarterly by someone outside this department to ensure fairness. That will triple our workload, Torres objected. Then we'll hire more staff. Ms. Hale has given me budget to build a proper ethics team. You're talking about creating massive bureaucratic overhead. I'm talking about accountability, Daniel said firmly. I'm talking about making sure no employee ever feels like their concerns don't matter because investigating them would be inconvenient. And yes, that will require more work. But it's work we should have been doing all along. Morrison spoke from her position by the window. Mr. Cross is right. The current system is unsustainable and unfair. We've been lucky to avoid major lawsuits, but that luck won't hold forever. These changes aren't just ethical. They're necessary for the company's survival. Hartley's expression suggested she disagreed vehemently, but knew better than to argue with a VP. She set her pen down with deliberate care. If that's the direction leadership wants to take, we'll implement it. But I want it on record that I have concerns about the practical implications. Noted, Daniel said. Now, I need each of you to pull the files for the cases I've flagged on this list. I'll be conducting follow-up interviews with the employees involved to understand what went wrong and how we can make it right. Some of these cases are years old, but if we can still remedy them, we will. After the meeting ended and the HR team filed out, Hartley last, her exit radiating displeasure. Morrison approached Daniel with something that might have been approval on her usually neutral face. That was well handled. You didn't attack them personally, but you made the problems impossible to ignore. I don't want to make enemies, Daniel said. I just want to fix things. Sometimes fixing things makes enemies anyway. Hartley's not happy. She participated in suspending me without evidence. I'm not particularly concerned about her happiness. Morrison smiled slightly. Fair enough. But watch your back, Daniel. People who feel threatened do unpredictable things. After she left, Daniel sat alone in the conference room, looking at the list of 53 cases where employees had been failed by the system. 53 people who'd trusted their company to treat them fairly and been disappointed. 53 stories of injustice that nobody had bothered to fix. His phone rang. Emma's school again. His heart jumped. Please don't let her be sick again. But Mrs. Patterson's voice was cheerful. Mr. Cross, sorry to bother you at work. Emma forgot her lunch at home this morning, and we wanted to check if you could drop it off or if we should give her the cafeteria option. Daniel checked his watch. 11:30. He could make it to Emma's school and back in 45 minutes if traffic cooperated. I'll bring it, he said. Be there in 20 minutes. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator, then realized he didn't have a company car anymore. That was his old job. He'd have to take the subway, which would actually be faster anyway. The normality of it felt grounding somehow, a reminder that despite the office and the title, he was still just Emma's dad who forgot to check her backpack in the morning rush. Emma's elementary school smelled like poster paint and industrial floor cleaner and the particular chaos of children learning. Daniel signed in at the office, grabbed the visitor's badge, and found Emma's classroom where Mrs. Patterson was reading aloud to a circle of 6-year-olds sitting crisscross on a rainbow carpet. Emma's face lit up when she saw him through the door window. Mrs. Patterson paused her reading, nodding permission for Daniel to enter. Daddy! Well, Emma jumped up and ran to him, remembering at the last second to use her inside voice. You brought my lunch! Couldn't let you go hungry, baby girl. Daniel handed her the Princess Elsa lunchbox, then crouched down to her level. You doing okay today? We're reading about butterflies. Did you know some butterflies live for just one day? That's so sad. That is sad. But they make the most of their day, right? Mrs. Patterson says they spend their whole day looking for flowers and helping plants grow. Even though they only live for one day, they still help things. Emma's serious gray eyes studied his face. Are you helping things at your new job? I'm trying to. Then you're like a butterfly. Even if it's hard, you're still helping. Daniel hugged her, not caring that her classmates were watching. When did you get so smart? I told you, I'm almost 7. Back at the office an hour later, Daniel found a stack of case files on his desk, the ones he'd requested from HR. He spent the rest of the afternoon reading through them, each one a small tragedy of bureaucratic indifference. A woman who'd reported sexual harassment by her supervisor, only to be told there was insufficient evidence and then quietly transferred to a different department where she had to take a pay cut. A warehouse worker who'd filed a safety complaint about faulty equipment, only to be written up for creating a hostile work environment when he persisted. A programmer who'd reported age discrimination and found himself laid off 3 months later for performance issues, despite years of excellent reviews. By 5 o'clock, Daniel felt sick. This wasn't just negligence, it was systematic abuse of power using HR policies as weapons against people who dared to speak up. His phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. How was day 1? Daniel considered his response carefully before typing. Eye-opening. We have a lot of work to do. That's why I hired you. Dinner tomorrow night? I'd like to hear your preliminary findings. Sounds good. Where? My place, actually. I'll cook. 7 p.m.? Fair warning, my cooking is mediocre at best, but we'll have privacy to talk freely. Daniel hesitated only briefly before responding. See you at 7. He immediately second-guessed the decision. Dinner at his boss's apartment, just the two of them, seemed like exactly the kind of boundary blurring that had gotten him in trouble before. But they did need to talk, and privacy was important for discussing sensitive HR cases. It was a work dinner, completely professional. He was still trying to convince himself of that when Marcus called. Yo, how was your first day as a big shot executive? Exhausting. I spent 6 hours reading about how badly this company treats people. Welcome to corporate America, brother. So when do you start fixing things? Already started. I told HR we're implementing new accountability measures. Hartley looked like she wanted to murder me. Marcus laughed. Oh man, I wish I could have seen her face. That woman's been running HR like her personal kingdom for 8 years. She's not going to like having oversight. That's her problem, not mine. Damn straight. Hey, speaking of problems, have you heard the latest gossip about you and Vivian? Daniel's stomach dropped. What gossip? People are saying the whole ethics director thing is a cover story, that you two are actually dating and this was her way of promoting her boyfriend without it looking suspicious. That's insane. I've known her for barely 2 months, and most of that time she was just the CEO who I drove to meetings. Hey, I'm just telling you what people are saying. Personally, I think they're idiots, but you should know the rumors are out there. After they hung up, Daniel sat in his new office, staring at the Manhattan skyline and wondering if accepting this promotion had been a terrible mistake. The job itself felt right. Important work that needed doing, a chance to actually help people. But the optics, the rumors, the constant scrutiny of his relationship with Vivian, that part felt impossible to navigate. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Cross, this is Amanda Peterson. You don't know me, but I saw the announcement about your new position. I filed a harassment complaint against my manager 2 years ago. HR said they investigated, but nothing changed, and I eventually left the company. If you're really trying to fix things, I'd like to tell you what happened. Daniel stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Ms. Peterson, I'd very much like to hear your story. Can you come to my office Thursday at 10 a.m.? I'll be there. Thank you for listening. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel stayed up late preparing for the interview. Amanda Peterson's file showed she'd been a senior accountant with 6 years at the company and consistently excellent performance reviews. Her harassment complaint had been filed against David Morrison, no relation to Sandra, a department VP. The investigation had consisted of a single interview with Morrison, who denied everything, and a conclusion that there was no evidence of wrongdoing. Amanda had resigned 3 months later. The file was a masterclass in how not to handle harassment complaints. No interview with Amanda beyond her initial written statement. No interview with potential witnesses she'd listed. No review of emails or messages. Just Morrison's denial and a quick closure. Daniel made notes until well past midnight, his anger building with each detail. This woman had trusted her company to protect her, and they'd chosen to protect her harasser instead. How many other Amandas were out there? How many people had Hale Industries failed? Thursday morning arrived cold and rainy, the kind of weather that made Manhattan feel gray and oppressive. Amanda Peterson showed up at 9:55 a.m. looking nervous but determined. A woman in her mid-30s with tired eyes and the posture of someone who'd learned to expect disappointment. Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Cross. Please, call me Daniel, and thank you for coming. He gestured to the chairs by his window. Can I get you coffee? Water? Water would be good. After they were settled, Daniel pulled out his notes. I've reviewed your case file. I want to hear your version of what happened, in your own words. Take all the time you need. Amanda took a breath, gathering herself. I started at Hale Industries right out of college, worked my way up from junior accountant to senior accountant. I loved my job. David Morrison was hired as department VP about 3 years into my tenure. At first, everything was fine. He was professional, competent, but about 6 months after he started, things changed. How so? Small things at first, comments about my appearance, unnecessary touching, hand on my shoulder, touching my back when he walked past my desk. I tried to brush it off, told myself I was being oversensitive, but it escalated. He started asking me to work late with him when nobody else was in the office, making suggestive comments, sending inappropriate texts. Did you keep the texts? I did. I submitted them with my complaint. Amanda's voice went flat. HR said they weren't overtly sexual, so they didn't constitute harassment. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. What happened after you filed the complaint? Jennifer Hartley called me in for a meeting. She asked me if I was sure I wanted to pursue this course of action. She said filing complaints against executives could be career limiting. She suggested maybe I'd misinterpreted Mr. Morrison's friendliness as something inappropriate. She made me feel like I was the problem. But you persisted. I did. I knew what I'd experienced. I knew it was wrong. So Hartley said they'd investigate. 2 weeks later, she called me back and said they'd found no evidence of misconduct, that Mr. Morrison had denied everything and there was nothing more they could do. She suggested I consider transferring to a different department if I felt uncomfortable. And you resigned instead. I couldn't stay. Morrison knew I'd filed a complaint against him. He made my life hell, excluded me from meetings, criticized my work in front of colleagues, gave me impossible deadlines. HR did nothing, so I left. Gave up a job I loved, a salary I'd worked 6 years to earn, because my company chose to protect a harasser instead of me. Daniel made notes, his handwriting sharp with controlled anger. Ms. Peterson, I need to ask you something. Would you be willing to go through this again? If I reopen your case, conduct a proper investigation, it means dredging up painful memories. It means possibly facing Morrison again. I can't promise a specific outcome, but I can promise a fair process. Is that something you'd want? Amanda's eyes filled with tears. You're seriously asking if I want justice? If I want someone to finally believe me? Yes, Mr. Cross. Yes, I want that more than anything. Then I'm reopening your case. And Miss Peterson? I'm sorry. I'm sorry this company failed you. I'm sorry you had to go through this alone. That's going to change. After Amanda left, lighter somehow, like telling her story had lifted a weight, Daniel marched straight to HR and requested David Morrison's complete personnel file, his email archives for the relevant time period, and a list of all employees who'd worked in his department during Amanda's tenure. Hartley's assistant said she'd need approval from Ms. Hartley for such an extensive request. Then get it, Daniel said. This is a formal investigation under my authority as Director of Ethics. Ms. Hale can confirm my access if there's any question. He didn't wait for a response, just returned to his office and sent Vivian an email outlining Amanda Peterson's case and his intention to investigate it properly. Her response came within 10 minutes. You have full access to whatever you need. Morrison is currently VP of Finance. I'll notify him that he's subject to investigation and place him on administrative leave pending the outcome. Keep me posted. Daniel spent the rest of the day tracking down witnesses from Amanda's department. Most were still with the company, and most seemed shocked that anyone was finally taking her complaint seriously. One by one, they confirmed her story. Morrison's inappropriate behavior, the hostile environment after she complained, the company's willful blindness to what was happening. By Thursday evening, Daniel had enough evidence to conclude that not only had Morrison harassed Amanda Peterson, but HR had actively covered it up to protect an executive. The investigation they'd claimed to conduct had been purely performative, designed to check a box rather than find the truth. At 6:45 p.m., Daniel left the office and took the subway to Vivian's building. The doorman recognized him this time, waving him through with a knowing smile that made Daniel's skin crawl. Great, even the building staff thought something was going on. Vivian answered her apartment door in jeans and a Columbia University sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun, looking more relaxed than Daniel had ever seen her. Come in. Fair warning, I attempted pasta and it's edible, but not impressive. The penthouse looked different in the evening light, warmer somehow, lived in. There were papers spread across the dining table, a laptop open on the couch, a pair of reading glasses abandoned on the coffee table. The kitchen smelled like garlic and tomatoes. I brought wine, Daniel said, holding up the bottle he'd grabbed from the corner store. Not fancy wine, but wine. Perfect. I'll get glasses. They sat at the dining table with plates of pasta that was actually quite good, better than anything Daniel made anyway, and talked about Amanda Peterson's case. Vivian listened intently, her expression growing darker as Daniel laid out the evidence of HR's failure. Morrison needs to be fired, she said flatly. Not just for the harassment, but for the retaliation after Amanda complained. That's indefensible. Agreed. But Vivian, this isn't just about Morrison. It's about the culture that allowed him to get away with it. HR knew what was happening. They chose to protect him anyway. What do you recommend? Daniel pulled out his tablet, showing her the preliminary report he'd drafted. Short term, terminate Morrison, offer Amanda Peterson a settlement including back pay and a formal apology, implement mandatory harassment training for all managers. Long term, overhaul the entire complaint process, hire an independent ethics team that reports directly to me instead of HR, establish clear consequences for retaliation, and create a whistleblower protection policy. Vivian scanned the report, nodding slowly. This is comprehensive. Expensive too. The settlement alone will be significant, and building an independent ethics team isn't cheap. Is the cost more important than doing the right thing? No. But I need to prepare the board for the financial implications. They're going to push back on this. Let them push back. You're the CEO. Tell them this is non-negotiable. Vivian looked up at him, something unreadable in her expression. You don't pull punches, do you? You hired me to fix things, not to be diplomatic about it. I did, and you're doing exactly what I hoped you'd do. She refilled both their wine glasses. But Daniel, I need to warn you about something. The board is already questioning this ethics director position. Some members think I created it as a PR move to smooth over the incident with you. Others think it's a waste of resources. If you start firing executives and implementing expensive new policies, they're going to fight you. Are you asking me to slow down? I'm asking you to be strategic. Build alliances, document everything. Make your case so airtight that even the most resistant board member can't argue with it. You're right about what needs to change, but being right doesn't guarantee success. You need to be smart about how you push for change. Daniel sat back studying Vivian. You sound like you've had to fight these battles before. I've spent 10 years fighting battles with that board. My father stacked it with his cronies, old guard executives who think employee welfare is a luxury we can't afford. I've gradually replaced some of them, but change is slow. They tolerate me because the company's profitable, but they don't like my approach. They think I'm too soft, too concerned with optics and ethics. If they see an opportunity to undermine me through you, they'll take it. Then we won't give them that opportunity. Easier said than done. Vivian pushed her pasta around her plate. There's something else you should know. The board is already questioning our relationship. Your rapid promotion, these dinners, the fact that I personally intervened in your case. They're watching for any sign of impropriety. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. Is that why you invited me here? To warn me we need to maintain distance? No. I invited you here because we're colleagues working on an important project, and sometimes colleagues have working dinners. Vivian met his eyes directly. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about perception. Not for my sake. I can handle gossip, but for yours. You're already fighting an uphill battle for credibility. If people think you're only in this position because of a personal relationship with me, it undermines everything you're trying to accomplish. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we be careful, professional in public, transparent about our interactions, above reproach in every way, because the work you're doing matters too much to let it be derailed by speculation about our relationship. We don't have a relationship, Daniel said. We're colleagues. That's all. I know that. You know that. But perception doesn't care about truth, as you learned the hard way. Vivian smiled without humor. Welcome to executive life, Daniel, where your actual behavior matters less than what people choose to believe about it. They finished dinner discussing safer topics. Emma's upcoming school play, Vivian's ongoing battle with her building's condo board, the absurdity of Manhattan real estate prices. But the earlier conversation hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. When Daniel left at 10 p.m., he felt more confused than when he'd arrived. The work was clear: fix the broken system, help people who'd been failed. But the personal dynamics felt like navigating a minefield blindfolded. Every interaction with Vivian was scrutinized, every conversation analyzed for hidden meaning, every professional collaboration twisted into evidence of something more. He thought about Emma's simple wisdom. When people are sad, helping them is always better. His daughter made morality sound so simple, so clear, but she'd never had to navigate corporate politics or manage optics or worry that doing the right thing would be misinterpreted as doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. The subway ride home gave Daniel time to think. He pulled out his phone and reviewed his notes from the day. Amanda Peterson's case, the witness statements, the evidence of HR's systematic failure. This mattered. This was real. Whatever complications existed in his relationship with Vivian, they couldn't distract from the actual work of fixing a broken system. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Heard you put Morrison on leave, building's buzzing with it. You've officially made enemies, my friend. Daniel typed back. Good. About time someone held these people accountable. Careful, man. Morrison has allies. Watch your back. Always do. When Daniel got home, he found Emma still awake despite it being well past her bedtime. She was sitting on her bed in her frozen pajamas, coloring by the light of her glow-in-the-dark stars. Emma rose cross. What are you doing up? She looked up guiltily. I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about the butterflies. The butterflies from school? Yeah. Mrs. Patterson said even though they only live for one day, they're still important. They still matter. Emma set down her crayon. Do you think people are like that? Even if they don't live very long or have big important jobs, they still matter? Daniel sat on the edge of her bed, his heart aching with love for this thoughtful, serious child. Everyone matters, baby girl, every single person. That's why the work I'm doing is important. Because the company forgot that. They started treating some people like they mattered more than others. But you're fixing it. I'm trying to. You will. Emma's certainty was absolute. Because you don't let go of people. You're like a butterfly who helps flowers grow, except you help people instead. Daniel hugged her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. When did you get so wise? I'm almost 7, Daddy. I keep telling you. After tucking Emma in properly and watching her finally drift to sleep, Daniel returned to the living room and pulled out his laptop. He worked until almost 2 a.m., documenting every detail of Amanda Peterson's case, building the airtight argument Vivian had advised him to create. Tomorrow, he'd present his findings to the legal team. The day after, he'd recommend Morrison's termination to the board. And after that, he'd start working through the other 52 cases where employees had been failed. It was going to be a long fight. There would be resistance, pushback, people who fought to maintain the status quo. But Daniel thought about Amanda Peterson's tears of relief when someone finally believed her. He thought about Emma's faith that fixing things mattered. He thought about Vivian's challenge to be strategic but uncompromising. And he thought about his own suspension, the fear and helplessness of being judged without evidence, the sick certainty that power would win over truth. Not anymore. Not on his watch. Daniel saved his document and finally went to bed ready for whatever battles tomorrow would bring. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Friday, which gave Daniel exactly 3 days to build a case so compelling that even Morrison's allies couldn't defend him. He spent those days buried in evidence, emails where Morrison made inappropriate comments, text messages that crossed every professional boundary, witness statements from 6 different employees who'd observed his behavior, and the damning record of HR's willful blindness to all of it. Thomas Chen, the company's general counsel, reviewed Daniel's findings on Thursday afternoon. He sat in Daniel's office for 2 hours, reading through every document with the methodical attention of someone who'd spent decades evaluating legal risk. When he finally looked up, his expression was grim. "This is airtight," Chen said. "Morrison's behavior constitutes textbook sexual harassment, and the retaliation against Ms. Peterson after she complained is actionable under both state and federal law. If she'd sued, we would have lost badly." "So you agree he should be terminated?" "I agree he should have been terminated 2 years ago when this first came to light. The fact that HR dismissed her complaint without proper investigation exposes the company to massive liability." Chen closed the file. "But Daniel, you need to understand what you're walking into tomorrow. Morrison has been with this company for 5 years. He's friends with 3 board members. He's going to fight this, and his allies are going to protect him. Let them try. The evidence speaks for itself." Evidence doesn't always win in boardrooms. Politics does. Chen leaned forward. "Morrison will claim this is a witch hunt. He'll say you're overreaching your authority, that you're trying to prove something by going after a senior executive. His allies will question your motives, your qualifications, maybe even suggest that Vivian put you up to this to consolidate her own power. None of that changes the facts." "No, but it changes the conversation. Instead of discussing Morrison's misconduct, they'll discuss you, your credibility, your agenda, your fitness for this role." Chen's voice softened slightly. "I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm trying to prepare you. Tomorrow is going to be brutal." That night, Daniel stayed late at the office, rehearsing his presentation until he could recite the key points from memory. He knew Chen was right. This wasn't just about Morrison anymore. It was about whether the board would allow a former driver to hold executives accountable, whether they'd support Vivian's vision of a more ethical company, whether truth mattered more than protecting their own. At 8 p.m., Vivian appeared in his doorway holding 2 cups of coffee from the fancy machine on the executive floor. "You're going to be here all night if someone doesn't intervene," she said, handing him a cup. "Just want to be ready." "You're ready. I've seen your presentation. It's thorough, professional, Devastating. Morrison doesn't have a leg to stand on. Vivian sat in the chair across from his desk. But Chen's right. Tomorrow is going to be ugly. Morrison's friends on the board are already making calls, building support. They're going to come at you hard. I can handle it. I know you can. But I also know what it feels like to face that board when they've already decided you're wrong. It's like arguing with a wall that insults you. She paused. I'll be there with you. I'll back you up. But Daniel, if this gets too political, if they start attacking you personally instead of addressing the evidence, I want you to let me handle it. Don't engage with their tactics. You're asking me to stay quiet while they tear me apart? I'm asking you to trust me to fight battles I've been fighting for 10 years. You focus on the evidence. I'll handle the personalities. Daniel wanted to argue, to insist he could defend himself, but something in Vivian's expression stopped him. She looked tired suddenly, like the weight of fighting that board alone had worn her down over the years. Maybe letting her help wasn't weakness. Maybe it was strategy. Okay, he said. I'll follow your lead. Vivian smiled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Thank you. Now go home and get some sleep. You've got a 6-year-old who probably wants to see you before bedtime. She was right. Daniel packed up his materials, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the subway. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's babysitter, Mrs. Rodriguez from down the hall, who watched Emma when Daniel worked late. Emma's asking for you. She's worried about your big meeting tomorrow. Says you seem stressed. Daniel smiled despite his exhaustion. His daughter could read him better than anyone. Tell her I'll be home in 30 minutes and I'm fine. She says you're not fine, you're nervous. Her words, not mine. This kid is too smart. When Daniel walked into the apartment 40 minutes later, Emma was waiting on the couch in her pajamas, her small face serious with concern. You're nervous about tomorrow, she announced. Not a question, a statement. Maybe a little, Daniel admitted, sitting beside her. I have to talk to some important people about something serious. Are you going to help somebody who's sad? Yeah, baby girl, I'm trying to. Then you don't need to be nervous. You're good at helping people. Emma snuggled against his side with the absolute confidence of someone who'd never doubted their parent. Remember what you always tell me when I'm scared about something. What do I tell you? You say being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. She looked up at him. So tomorrow, you're going to be brave, and you're going to help the sad person, and everything will be okay. Daniel hugged her close, drawing strength from her certainty. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I know. Because we don't let go of people, Daddy, even when it's hard. Later, after Emma was asleep, Daniel lay on his pull-out couch staring at the ceiling and thinking about bravery. He'd been a soldier once, before Emma was born, before he'd met her mother. He'd known physical courage, the kind that made you run toward danger instead of away from it. But this was different. Tomorrow required a different kind of courage. The willingness to stand in front of powerful people and tell them they were wrong, knowing they could destroy his career with a single vote. He thought about Amanda Peterson, who'd shown that same courage when she filed her complaint knowing it could cost her everything. She'd been brave, and the company had punished her for it. Tomorrow was about making sure that never happened again. Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Good luck tomorrow, man. Word on the street is Morrison's people are preparing a counterattack. They're going to claim you're manufacturing evidence because Vivian wants him gone for political reasons. Let them claim whatever they want. I have 6 witnesses and 2 years of documented misconduct. Just watch yourself. These people play dirty. Daniel set his phone aside and finally drifted into uneasy sleep, his dreams filled with boardrooms and judges and Emma's voice saying, "We don't let go of people," like a prayer. Friday arrived with merciless clarity, one of those late October days where the sunlight seemed sharper than usual, cutting through the city's usual haze. Daniel dressed in his best suit, the one he'd bought for job interviews that he'd never thought he'd wear to a boardroom battle. He dropped Emma at school early, hugging her extra tight when she whispered, "Be brave, Daddy," in his ear. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the largest conference room on the executive floor. Daniel arrived at 1:30 to find Vivian already there, setting up the presentation equipment. She wore a severe black suit that screamed authority, her hair pulled back in the kind of bun that could intimidate from across a room. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." "Remember, stick to the facts. Don't let them provoke you. And if it gets ugly, let me handle it." The board members started arriving at 1:45. Daniel recognized some from company photos. Robert Blackwell, the silver-haired chairman who had been friends with Vivian's father. Catherine Torres, the former Goldman Sachs executive who ran the audit committee. James Preston, the venture capitalist who'd invested in Hale Industries' early days. And 3 others whose names Daniel knew from the company directory but had never met. David Morrison arrived last, flanked by 2 lawyers Daniel didn't recognize. Morrison was exactly what you'd expect from a finance VP. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive haircut, and an expression that suggested he'd never been told no in his life. He looked at Daniel with undisguised contempt. "Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for convening on short notice," Vivian began, standing at the head of the table. "We're here to discuss findings from our ethics review regarding David Morrison's conduct toward a former employee, Amanda Peterson. Daniel Cross, our Director of Ethics and Professional Standards, has conducted a thorough investigation. Daniel, please present your findings." Daniel stood, connected his laptop to the projector, and launched into the presentation he'd rehearsed a dozen times. He started with Amanda Peterson's initial complaint, then methodically laid out the evidence. Morrison's inappropriate emails, witness testimonies, the pattern of retaliation after Amanda complained, and HR's failure to properly investigate. He kept his voice level, his tone professional, letting the facts speak for themselves. When he reached the slide showing Morrison's text messages to Amanda, comments about her appearance, suggestions about after-work drinks, increasingly personal questions, Morrison's lawyer interrupted. "Mr. Cross, these messages are being taken out of context. Mr. Morrison was simply trying to build rapport with his team. Building rapport doesn't involve telling an employee she looks incredible in that dress or asking if she's free for drinks at his place," Daniel said calmly. "These messages constitute harassment under both company policy and federal guidelines." "That's your interpretation," the lawyer shot back. "Mr. Morrison disputes that characterization." "Mr. Morrison can dispute reality all he wants. 6 witnesses confirm a pattern of inappropriate behavior. HR's own records show multiple informal complaints that were never properly documented, and Ms. Peterson's resignation letter explicitly cites Mr. Morrison's conduct as her reason for leaving." Daniel advanced to the next slide, showing the timeline of events after Amanda filed her complaint. "What we have here is textbook retaliation. Ms. Peterson reports harassment, and within weeks she's being excluded from meetings, given impossible deadlines, and written up for minor infractions she'd never been cited for before. Mr. Morrison made her life unbearable until she felt she had no choice but to resign." Robert Blackwell, the chairman, cleared his throat. "Mr. Cross, these are serious allegations, but I'm troubled by the timing of this investigation. You've been in your position for less than 2 weeks, and you're already recommending the termination of a senior executive. That seems rather aggressive." "With respect, Mr. Blackwell, the timing isn't aggressive. It's overdue. This harassment occurred 2 years ago. HR had all this evidence at the time and chose not to act on it. If anything, this investigation is 2 years too late." "Nevertheless," Blackwell continued, "the appearance of a vendetta concerns me. You were recently involved in an incident with Ms. Hale that resulted in your suspension. Some might argue you have a personal grudge against how this company handles investigations." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. Here it was. Exactly what Chen had warned him about. They were making this about him instead of Morrison. "My personal experience is irrelevant to the evidence," Daniel said carefully. "The facts of Ms. Peterson's case stand on their own merit." Catherine Torres spoke up, her voice sharp. "But your judgment doesn't. Mr. Cross, you're asking us to terminate a VP who's been with this company for 5 years based on an investigation you conducted in less than 2 weeks. How do we know you haven't rushed to judgment? How do we know this isn't about proving something?" "Because I interviewed 6 witnesses who all corroborated Ms. Peterson's account. Because I reviewed 2 years of email correspondence that shows a clear pattern of inappropriate conduct. Because Ms. Hale wanted Morrison gone for political reasons, and you're providing her with convenient justification," James Preston interrupted. His smile was cold. Vivian, we all know Morrison opposed your last 3 strategic initiatives. Now suddenly he's being accused of harassment by a former employee who left the company 2 years ago? The timing is awfully convenient. Vivian stood, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. James, if you're suggesting I manufactured evidence against Morrison, you're welcome to review every document yourself. Better yet, you can speak to the 6 witnesses who confirmed his behavior, or you can read the text messages where Morrison explicitly tells Ms. Peterson that complaining to HR would be a mistake. This isn't political. This is accountability. Accountability is fine, Blackwell said, but so is due process. Morrison deserves a chance to respond to these allegations. Morrison leaned forward, finally speaking. These allegations are completely false. Amanda Peterson was a disgruntled employee who couldn't handle constructive criticism. When I pushed her to improve her performance, she retaliated by making up stories about harassment. HR investigated at the time and found no evidence of wrongdoing. This is nothing but a witch hunt orchestrated by someone, he glanced at Daniel with barely concealed disdain, who has no business conducting executive-level investigations. Mr. Morrison, you've just demonstrated exactly why this investigation was necessary, Daniel said, his voice harder now. You're calling a harassment victim disgruntful and claiming her detailed, corroborated account of your misconduct was made up. That response alone shows a fundamental lack of respect for employee dignity. Morrison's face flushed red. How dare you? How dare I what? Hold you accountable? Do my job? Daniel advanced to his final slide, showing the legal opinion Chen had prepared. Our general counsel has reviewed this case. His conclusion is that if Ms. Peterson had sued, the company would have lost. We're exposed to significant liability because HR failed to properly investigate her complaint. But beyond the legal risk, there's a moral issue here. An employee was harassed, she reported it through proper channels, and she was punished for speaking up. If we allow that to stand, we're telling every employee that their safety and dignity don't matter. Mr. Cross, your moralizing is noted, Blackwell said dryly. But this board makes decisions based on facts and business considerations, not emotional appeals. Then consider the business facts, Vivian cut in. We have documented evidence of harassment and retaliation. We have witness testimony. We have a legal opinion stating we're liable for damages. And we have an employee who trusted this company to protect her and was betrayed. Terminating Morrison isn't just the right thing to do. It's the necessary thing to do to protect Hale Industries from future liability. Or, Preston said slowly, we could dispute these findings, discredit the witnesses, and defend Morrison. It would be expensive, but probably cheaper than setting a precedent where any employee can make accusations and get executives fired. The room went very quiet. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. Preston had just said the quiet part out loud, that protecting executives mattered more than protecting employees, that money mattered more than truth. If that's the direction this board wants to take, Daniel said quietly, then I'll resign. Because I didn't take this position to help the company cover up misconduct. I took it to fix a broken culture. If you're not interested in fixing it, then I can't help you. Daniel, Vivian started, but he shook his head. No, this needs to be said. You brought me here to provide oversight and accountability. But if accountability only applies to certain people, if we're going to protect executives while sacrificing employees, then this whole position is a joke. I won't be part of that. Blackwell studied Daniel with an unreadable expression. You'd really walk away from this job? The salary, the benefits, the opportunity? In a heartbeat. Because my daughter is 6 years old, and I'm trying to teach her that doing the right thing matters. I can't teach her that and then go to work every day participating in a system that rewards the wrong thing. Daniel met Blackwell's eyes directly. So yes, I'll walk away. Some things are more important than opportunity. The silence that followed felt heavy, weighted with consequences Daniel couldn't quite calculate. Then Catherine Torres spoke, her voice thoughtful. Robert, I'd like to review the evidence Mr. Cross has compiled. All of it, before we make any decisions. As would I, said another board member, a woman named Susan Chen. If the legal exposure is as significant as our general counsel suggests, we need to take that seriously. Morrison's lawyer started to object, but Blackwell held up a hand. Agreed. We'll table this discussion until all board members have reviewed the complete investigation file. David, you'll remain on administrative leave until we reach a decision. This meeting is adjourned. People started gathering their materials, and Morrison shot Daniel a look of pure hatred before his lawyers ushered him out. Vivian approached Daniel, her expression carefully neutral. "That was either very brave or very stupid," she said quietly. "Threatening to resign in front of the board is not a tactical move I would have recommended." "I wasn't being tactical, I was being honest." "I know, that's what worries me." Vivian glanced toward where Blackwell was conferring with Torres. "But I think it might have worked. Torres is pragmatic. If the legal risk is real, she'll vote to terminate Morrison. And once Torres moves, others usually follow." "And if they don't?" "Then we both might be looking for new jobs." Vivian smiled without humor. "But at least we'll have our integrity intact." Over the next week, the board members reviewed Daniel's evidence individually. Catherine Torres spent 3 hours in his office going through every witness statement and email thread. Susan Chen requested additional documentation about HR's investigation process. Even James Preston, Morrison's ally, grudgingly admitted that the text messages were problematic. Daniel continued his regular work, interviewing more employees who'd filed dismissed complaints, building cases for systemic reform. But the Morrison decision hung over everything, a test case that would determine whether the ethics position had real authority or was just window dressing. Emma noticed her father's tension and tried to help in her 6-year-old way, drawing pictures of butterflies being brave and leaving them on his bathroom mirror with notes that said, "You can do it, Daddy." Daniel collected each drawing like armor, reminders of why this mattered. On Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the board meeting, Vivian called Daniel to her office. Her expression was unreadable. "The board reached a decision," she said. "Unanimous vote. Morrison is terminated effective immediately, with cause, which means no severance beyond accrued vacation time. They're also implementing your recommended policy changes regarding harassment investigations and creating the independent ethics team you proposed." Daniel felt something unclench in his chest. They actually did it. Torres convinced them the legal exposure was too high. Preston wanted to fight it, but Blackwell sided with Torres, and that ended the discussion. Vivian's expression softened slightly. "Your threat to resign sealed it, actually. Blackwell told me afterward that anyone willing to walk away from this job on principle was probably the right person to have it. He was impressed." "I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just being honest about my limits." "I know. That's what made it effective." Vivian handed him a folder. "This is the formal announcement going out this afternoon. And this," she handed him a second folder, "is Amanda Peterson's settlement agreement, full back pay, a formal written apology from the company, and a confidential financial settlement. Legal thinks she'll accept." Daniel opened the second folder, scanning the terms. It was generous, more generous than he'd expected. "This is good, Vivian. Really good. It's what she deserves. What we should have done 2 years ago." Vivian sat on the edge of her desk, looking tired but satisfied. "Daniel, I want you to know something. When I created this position, I hoped you'd make a difference. But I underestimated how much courage it would take to actually challenge the system. You didn't just do the job, you showed the entire company what integrity looks like, even when it could have cost you everything." "I had a good example," Daniel said quietly. "You backed me up when you didn't have to. You could have let the board bury this, protected Morrison to avoid conflict. You didn't." "We make a good team," Vivian said, and something in her voice made Daniel look up sharply. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, warmth maybe, or something more complicated. "Which is why I wanted to ask you something. There's a company gala next month celebrating the opening of our new headquarters. I need to bring someone. Would you consider coming with me? As my colleague," she added quickly, "to show the company that ethics and leadership work together." Daniel hesitated. Everything he'd learned about optics and perception screamed that this was a terrible idea. But Vivian was looking at him with genuine hope, like his presence would actually matter to her beyond the political symbolism. "I'd need to find a babysitter for Emma," he said finally. "And I'd need to rent a tux, but yeah, I'll go." Vivian's smile was genuine, reaching her eyes in a way Daniel had rarely seen. Thank you. I know it's not your favorite kind of event. Corporate galas rank slightly above root canals on my list of fun activities, Daniel confirmed. But if it helps show that the company is serious about ethics, I can suffer through some champagne and small talk. I'll make sure the champagne is good, at least. After leaving Vivian's office, Daniel called Amanda Peterson from his own office. She answered on the second ring, her voice cautious. Mr. Cross? Miss Peterson, I wanted to give you the news directly. David Morrison has been terminated. The board reviewed all the evidence and voted unanimously to fire him with cause. Silence. Then a sound that might have been a sob or a laugh or both. He's really gone? He's really gone. And the company has prepared a settlement offer for you, full back pay for the time you lost, a formal written apology, and additional compensation. I'm having our legal team send over the documents this afternoon. I don't know what to say. Amanda's voice broke. I thought I'd never get justice. I thought what happened to me didn't matter. It matters. You mattered. And I'm sorry it took 2 years for someone to tell you that. After they hung up, Daniel sat in his office watching the Manhattan skyline and feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not just for himself, but for the company, for the employees who'd been failed, for the possibility that systems could actually change if someone cared enough to push. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's school. Mr. Cross, Emma drew a picture of you as a superhero today. She said you're a superhero who helps sad people be happy again. Thought you'd want to know. Mrs. Patterson. Daniel smiled, his throat tight. Not a superhero, just a father trying to make the world a little fairer for his daughter to grow up in. Just a man who'd learned that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. Just someone who refused to let go of people, even when it was hard. That evening, Daniel picked Emma up from after-school care and took her for ice cream to celebrate, though he didn't tell her what they were celebrating, just that Daddy had had a good day at work. They sat in the booth at their favorite corner shop, Emma with her strawberry cone and Daniel with his coffee, and talked about everything and nothing. Daddy, do you like your new job? Emma asked, strawberry ice cream on her nose. Yeah, baby girl, I really do. Because you get to help people? Because I get to help people, Daniel confirmed. Remember Amanda, the lady who was sad? She's happy now because we fixed what was wrong. See? You're like a butterfly. You help things grow. Emma took a thoughtful lick of her ice cream. Mrs. Patterson says butterflies are important even though they're small. She says everything that helps others matters, no matter how small it is. Mrs. Patterson is a wise woman. I know. She's almost as smart as you. Emma grinned, gap-toothed and perfect. Daddy, can I ask you something? Always. The lady who you work for, Miss Vivian, is she nice? Daniel considered the question carefully. Yeah, she's nice. Why do you ask? Because you smile different when you talk about her. Like happy different, not just work different. Emma's 6-year-old perception was devastating in its accuracy. Do you like her? She's my friend, Emma, and my boss. Can she be both? Yeah, she can be both. Good. Because you need more friends. You work too much and you don't have enough people who make you smile. Emma returned to her ice cream, apparently satisfied with this assessment of her father's social life. Daniel sat back, struck by his daughter's observation. Did he smile different when talking about Vivian? He'd been so careful to maintain professional boundaries, to keep things strictly collegial, to not let the complicated history between them become something more complicated. But maybe Emma saw something he'd been working hard not to see, that Vivian had become more than just a colleague, more than just the CEO who'd given him a second chance. She'd become someone he trusted, someone whose opinion mattered, someone who made him want to be better, work harder, push for more change, someone who understood what it cost to do the right thing and did it anyway. But that didn't mean anything beyond professional respect and friendship. It couldn't mean more, not with the optics, the power dynamic, the scrutiny they were already under. Even if sometimes, when Vivian looked at him with that expression he couldn't quite read, Daniel wondered what it would be like if circumstances were different, if they'd met some other way, in some other life, where the complications didn't exist. Daddy, you're thinking too hard again, Emma observed. Your face gets all scrunchy. Sorry, baby girl, just work stuff. Is it the gala thing, the fancy party? Daniel blinked. How do you know about that? You left the invitation on the kitchen table. I can read, Daddy. I'm in first grade. Emma's tone suggested this should be obvious. Are you nervous about the party? Maybe a little. I'm not really a fancy party kind of guy. But you're going anyway because it's important? Yeah. That's being brave again, like the butterflies. Emma finished her cone with satisfaction. You're going to be great, Daddy. You're always great when you're being brave. Daniel hugged his daughter close, grateful for her unwavering faith, and tried not to think too hard about why the prospect of attending a gala with Vivian made him both nervous and oddly hopeful. Some questions were better left unexamined, at least for now. The month between Morrison's termination and the gala passed in a blur of systematic change. Daniel hired 3 people for his ethics team: a former labor attorney named Rebecca Walsh, a workplace culture specialist named James Kim, and a recent graduate named Maya Patel, who'd written her thesis on corporate accountability. Together, they redesigned the entire complaint process, implementing the transparency measures Daniel had promised, and creating real pathways for employees to report problems without fear of retaliation. The changes weren't universally popular. Some executives grumbled about increased oversight. A few HR staffers resented the implication that their previous work had been inadequate. But employees noticed. Daniel started getting emails from people he'd never met, thanking him for making the workplace feel safer, for giving them hope that speaking up might actually matter. One email in particular stuck with him, from a warehouse worker named Miguel Santos, who'd filed a safety complaint 3 years earlier and been ignored. Daniel reopened his case, found that the equipment Miguel had flagged was indeed dangerous, and forced maintenance to fix it within a week. Miguel's email was simple. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for caring. Daniel printed it out and pinned it to his office wall, a reminder of why the work mattered. Emma remained his anchor through it all, her uncomplicated wisdom cutting through corporate complexity. When Daniel came home stressed about resistance from executives, she'd remind him that people don't like change because change is scary, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. When he worried about whether he was qualified for the job, she'd say, "You're helping people, so you're doing it right." Her absolute faith was both humbling and motivating. The night before the gala, Daniel stood in his apartment staring at the rented tuxedo hanging on his door and wondering what he'd gotten himself into. The invitation sat on the kitchen table, heavy cardstock, elegant script, announcing the grand opening of Hale Industries' new headquarters, with a reception and dinner for 500 of the company's most important stakeholders, partners, and employees. Vivian had asked him to arrive early, to be there when she arrived so they could enter together. Show them that ethics and leadership are aligned, she'd said. Daniel suspected there was more to it than symbolism, but he didn't let himself examine that thought too closely. Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to watch Emma overnight. The gala would run late, and Daniel didn't want to wake his daughter at midnight. Emma was thrilled by the sleepover prospect and insisted on helping her father prepare. "You need to shave," she announced critically, studying his face. "And do something with your hair." "What's wrong with my hair?" "It looks like you just woke up. You need gel or something." Emma's knowledge of men's grooming came entirely from animated movies, but she was adamant. "And you should smile more. You look too serious." "It's a fancy party, baby girl. People are supposed to look serious." "No, they're not. They're supposed to look happy. It's a celebration." Emma climbed onto the couch beside him, her expression turning thoughtful. "Daddy, are you nervous about seeing Miss Vivian?" Daniel hesitated. "Why would I be nervous about that?" "Because you get all weird when you talk about her. Your voice changes and you smile that smile you don't usually smile." "What smile?" "The one that makes you look younger, like when you're happy, not just regular happy." Emma tilted her head, studying him with those 2 wise gray eyes. "Mrs. Rodriguez says when grown-ups act weird around each other, it means they like each other special." "Mrs. Rodriguez needs to mind her own business," Daniel muttered, but his face felt warm. "And I'm not acting weird. Miss Vivian is my colleague and my friend, that's all." "Okay, Daddy." Emma's tone suggested she didn't believe him but was willing to let it go. "But you should still smile more at the party. People like it when you smile." The next evening, Daniel stood outside the new Hale Industries headquarters at 6:45, 15 minutes before he was supposed to meet Vivian. The building was spectacular, all glass and steel and soaring architecture, lit from within like a beacon. Caterers moved through the lobby, setting up. Waitstaff in crisp uniforms arranged champagne flutes on silver trays, and a string quartet played something classical near the entrance. Daniel felt completely out of place in his rented tuxedo, like a kid playing dress-up in his father's clothes. He was just pulling out his phone to text Vivian when a town car pulled up and she emerged. Daniel had seen Vivian in professional attire countless times, power suits and severe buns, and the armor of executive presence. He'd seen her casual in jeans and sweaters, approachable and human, but he'd never seen her like this. The dress was midnight blue, simple and elegant, nothing flashy but perfectly tailored to suggest both authority and grace. Her hair was down, falling in dark waves over her shoulders. She wore minimal jewelry, just diamond earrings that caught the light, and her expression when she saw him waiting was genuine pleasure. "You clean up well," she said, approaching with a smile that made Daniel forget for a moment that this was his boss. "So do you. You look—" He stopped himself, suddenly aware that whatever he was about to say would cross some invisible line. "Professional," he finished lamely. Vivian laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. "Professional? That's the best you can do?" "I'm trying to maintain appropriate boundaries here." "Well, stop trying for one night. We're colleagues and friends attending a company event together. That's allowed." She linked her arm through his, a gesture that felt simultaneously natural and terrifying. "Come on, let's show them what integrity looks like." The gala was everything Daniel expected and dreaded. Hundreds of people in expensive clothes making expensive small talk, champagne flowing like water, carefully orchestrated networking disguised as celebration. Vivian was immediately pulled into conversations with board members and investors, and Daniel found himself nodding politely while people discussed market shares and quarterly projections in voices that suggested these were life or death matters. But throughout the evening, Vivian kept circling back to him, including him in conversations, introducing him not as the ethics director, but as the man who's transforming our company culture. She made it clear through body language and attention that he belonged here, that his presence mattered, and gradually Daniel felt himself relaxing into the role. Marcus appeared at one point, looking sharp in his own tux and grinning broadly. "Look at you, rubbing elbows with the elite. Next you'll be buying a summer house in the Hamptons." "I'm more of a modest apartment in Queens kind of guy." "Yeah, but for how long? You're moving up in the world, Daniel. People notice." Marcus nodded toward where Vivian was laughing at something Catherine Torres had said. "Especially how she looks at you. I'm just saying, she doesn't look at me any particular way." "Right. And I'm the Queen of England." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Just be careful, man. The higher you climb, the farther you can fall." Before Daniel could respond, someone tapped a champagne glass for attention. Robert Blackwell stood at a microphone near the front of the room, his silver hair and commanding presence demanding silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate this magnificent new facility. Hale Industries has come a long way since Harrison Hale founded this company 30 years ago. We've grown, evolved, and adapted to changing markets while maintaining our commitment to innovation and excellence." The speech continued in that vein, corporate platitudes about vision and leadership and market dominance. But then Blackwell's tone shifted slightly. "In recent months, we've also committed to something equally important, creating a workplace culture that reflects our values, not just our profits. To that end, I'd like to recognize someone who's been instrumental in driving that change. Daniel Cross, would you join me up here, please?" Daniel's stomach dropped. This wasn't part of the plan. Vivian caught his eye from across the room and nodded encouragingly. Daniel made his way to the front, hyper-aware of hundreds of eyes tracking his movement. "Daniel came to Hale Industries as a driver," Blackwell continued when Daniel reached the microphone. "But he showed us that character transcends job titles. When faced with false accusations, he maintained his integrity. When given authority, he used it to help others. And when asked to challenge a broken system, he had the courage to tell this board we were wrong. That kind of moral courage is rare in any industry. Daniel, on behalf of the board, I want to formally recognize your contributions to this company with our first ever Ethics Leadership Award." Blackwell handed Daniel a crystal award shaped like, of all things, a butterfly. Daniel nearly laughed at the cosmic poetry of it. Emma would love this. I also want to announce, Blackwell continued, that effective immediately, Daniel's ethics team will have expanded authority and resources. We're doubling his budget and giving him a seat on our quarterly board meetings. Because we've learned that doing the right thing isn't just good ethics, it's good business. Applause filled the room. Daniel stood holding the butterfly award and trying to process what had just happened. A seat at board meetings, doubled budget, official recognition that the work mattered. Speech, someone called out. Others took up the chant. Vivian was beaming at him from the crowd. Daniel stepped to the microphone, his heart pounding. Public speaking had never been his strength, but he thought about Emma's advice to smile more, to be brave. Thank you, Chairman Blackwell. This award is beautiful and completely unexpected. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I'm not a businessman or an executive. I'm just someone who believes that people deserve to be treated with dignity, that truth matters more than convenience, and that companies have responsibilities beyond profit margins. When I took this job, a lot of people questioned whether a former driver belonged in a director-level position. Honestly, I questioned it too. Scattered laughter rippled through the crowd. But I've learned something over these past months. Ethics isn't about credentials or experience or knowing the right corporate buzzwords. It's about having the courage to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. It's about believing that everyone, from the executive floor to the warehouse floor, deserves respect and fair treatment. And it's about refusing to let go of those principles, even when it's hard. Daniel looked at Vivian, who was watching him with something that looked like pride. I couldn't have done any of this without CEO Hale's support. She took a risk on someone unconventional, backed me up when it would have been easier to let me fail, and showed me that real leadership means being willing to change. So this award isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who had the courage to speak up, to report problems, to believe that things could be better. Thank you. The applause was louder this time, genuine rather than polite. As Daniel returned to the crowd, people shook his hand, offered congratulations, told him they appreciated what he was doing. It felt surreal, like he'd stepped into someone else's life. Vivian found him 20 minutes later on the building's outdoor terrace, where he'd escaped for air. The November night was cold but clear, Manhattan's light spreading out below them like a field of stars. That was a good speech, she said, joining him at the railing. I have no idea what I said. I just talked. You were honest and humble and inspiring. Classic Daniel Cross. Vivian stood close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Blackwell meant what he said, by the way. The board is genuinely impressed with your work. They're talking about using Hale Industries as a model for other companies. Other companies should implement basic human decency without needing a model, but I'll take it. Vivian laughed. See, that's what I love about you. No corporate polish, just direct honesty. She paused, and Daniel felt the weight of that word, love, hanging between them like a question neither was ready to ask. Daniel, can I tell you something? Of course. When I hired you, I thought I was giving you an opportunity, but really you gave me one. You reminded me why I wanted to run this company in the first place. Not to prove myself to my father's ghost or to build a bigger empire, but to create something that actually matters. A place where people are valued, where integrity counts, where doing the right thing is rewarded instead of punished. You showed me that was possible. Daniel turned to face her, finding her closer than he'd realized. Vivian, you were already doing that. I just helped make it more visible. No, I was going through the motions, fighting the same battles with the board, getting exhausted by the politics. You brought clarity, purpose. You made me remember that power is only meaningful if you use it to help people. Her voice dropped lower, more vulnerable. You made me remember a lot of things, actually. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibilities neither had acknowledged before. Daniel was acutely aware of her proximity, the way the city lights reflected in her eyes, the slight tremor in her breath that suggested she was as nervous as he was. We should probably go back inside, he said quietly, but he didn't move. Probably, Vivian agreed, also not moving. People will talk if we're out here alone too long. People already talk. Let them. Vivian reached up, adjusting his bow tie, which had gone slightly crooked. The gesture was intimate, familiar, crossing every professional boundary they'd been so careful to maintain. Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Always am. Is this, she gestured between them, just professional respect? Just friendship? Or is there something else here that we've both been pretending not to notice? Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. This was the question he'd been avoiding for months, the complication he'd refused to acknowledge. Everything practical and logical said he should deflect, maintain boundaries, protect both their positions. But Emma's voice echoed in his head. Being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared. There's something else, he admitted quietly. I don't know what to call it, and I'm not sure what to do about it, but yeah, there's something else. Vivian's expression softened with relief and something that looked like joy. I'm glad I'm not imagining it. I've been trying so hard to keep things professional, to not blur lines or create complications, but Daniel, she stopped, seeming to choose her words carefully. You're the first person in 10 years who's seen me as just a person. Not a CEO, not Harrison Hale's daughter, not a position to be leveraged or an obstacle to overcome. Just Vivian, and that's terrifying and wonderful and completely inappropriate given our professional relationship. So what do we do about it? I have no idea. The optics are terrible. The power dynamic is complicated. The board would have opinions, and not good ones. Vivian looked out over the city, her profile illuminated by Manhattan's glow. But I'm tired of letting other people's opinions dictate my personal life. I've spent 10 years being the perfect CEO, making every decision based on how it would look to the board or the press or the industry. Maybe it's time I made a decision based on what I actually want. And what do you want? Vivian turned back to him, and the vulnerability in her expression took his breath away. I want to see where this goes. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but slowly, carefully, honestly. I want to get to know you outside of boardrooms and investigations and corporate politics. I want to meet Emma, because any man who raises a daughter with that much wisdom and kindness must be doing something extraordinary. I want to stop pretending that what I feel when I'm around you is purely professional. Daniel felt something in his chest loosen, a knot of tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. My lease is up in 3 months, and I'm terrified I won't find another affordable place in the city. I'm a single father who barely knows how to cook anything beyond spaghetti. I don't come from money or prestige or anything remotely resembling your world. I'm just someone who's honest and brave and refuses to compromise his principles. Someone who sees people, really sees them, and treats them with dignity regardless of their position. Someone who makes me want to be better. Vivian smiled softly. Daniel, I don't care about your lease or your cooking skills or your pedigree. I care that you're a good man raising a good daughter and trying to make the world a little fairer. That matters to me more than anything. The gossip will be brutal. People will say terrible things, that I slept my way into this position, that you're abusing your power, that this whole ethics thing was just a cover story. Let them say it. We'll know the truth, and we'll prove them wrong by doing the work with integrity. Vivian reached out, taking his hand. The gesture was simple but felt monumental. I'm not asking for a relationship tomorrow. I'm asking if you're willing to explore the possibility, to have dinner that isn't about work, to get to know each other as people instead of CEO and director, to see if this thing between us is real or just proximity and shared purpose. Daniel looked down at their joined hands, thinking about all the reasons this was complicated and risky and potentially disastrous. Then he thought about Emma's faith that things would work out if you were brave enough to try. About Vivian's courage in being vulnerable when she could have stayed safely behind professional walls. About the fact that life was short and chances for genuine connection were rare. Okay, he said. Let's see where this goes. Vivian's smile was radiant, transforming her face from beautiful to luminous. Yeah. But we do this right, transparent with HR, no hiding anything, everything documented and above board. And we take it slow. Emma comes first, always. And if at any point this starts interfering with the work or creating actual conflicts of interest, we reassess. Agreed. Completely transparent, appropriately slow, Emma's well-being prioritized. Vivian squeezed his hand gently. Thank you for being brave enough to try. Thank you for asking. They stood on the terrace for another moment, the city sprawling below them, before heading back inside to the gala. Daniel felt lighter somehow, like acknowledging the truth had lifted a weight he hadn't known he was carrying. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and conversations and champagne toasts. Daniel caught Vivian's eye across the room several times, and each time she smiled at him with unguarded warmth that made him feel like the entire complicated mess of corporate politics and power dynamics might actually work out somehow. At midnight, as the gala was winding down, Daniel called to check on Emma, Mrs. Rodriguez reported that Emma had gone to bed at 9, but left specific instructions for her father. "She said to tell you that butterflies who are brave get to help more flowers grow," Mrs. Rodriguez relayed with obvious confusion. "I have no idea what that means, but she was very insistent." Daniel smiled. "Tell her I got the message, and that she's absolutely right." He collected Emma the next morning, finding her full of questions about the party. They went to their favorite diner for pancakes, a Sunday morning tradition, and Emma studied her father's face with that unnervingly perceptive gaze. "You look different," she announced, "happier." "I had a good night." "Did you smile more like I told you to?" "I did, actually. You were right about that." Emma nodded with satisfaction. "I'm usually right about people's stuff. Mrs. Patterson says I have good instincts." She took a bite of pancakes, then asked casually, "Did you talk to Miss Vivian?" "I did." "And?" Daniel considered how much to tell his 6-year-old daughter about complicated adult feelings. "And we decided we're friends, good friends, who maybe want to be better friends." Emma's face lit up. "Does that mean I get to meet her?" "Maybe. Would you want to meet her?" "Yeah, I want to see if she's as nice as you think she is." Emma's logic was unassailable. "And I want to tell her thank you for giving you the job where you help people. That was nice of her." It was very nice of her. Over the next several weeks, Daniel and Vivian navigated the delicate balance of exploring a personal connection while maintaining professional boundaries. They had dinner twice, once at a quiet restaurant in Brooklyn, once at Vivian's apartment where she attempted to cook, and Daniel ended up helping rescue the meal. They talked about everything except work, childhood memories, favorite books, embarrassing moments, dreams for the future. Daniel learned that Vivian played piano, poorly but enthusiastically, and that she'd wanted to be a teacher before her father's death pushed her into corporate leadership. Vivian learned that Daniel had served in the army before Emma was born, that Emma's mother had died in a car accident when Emma was 2, and that single fatherhood had taught him more about patience and love than any military training ever had. They were careful, deliberate, taking things at a pace that felt sustainable rather than rushed. And when office gossip started suggesting they were dating, Vivian addressed it head-on in a company-wide email that acknowledged a personal friendship, while emphasizing the continued independence of Daniel's ethics work. The transparency helped, though it didn't silence all critics. 3 weeks after the gala, Vivian came to Daniel's apartment for the first time to meet Emma. She brought a gift, a book about butterflies with beautiful illustrations, and sat on the worn couch answering Emma's rapid-fire questions with patience and genuine interest. "Do you like my daddy?" Emma asked at one point, with the blunt directness only children could manage. Vivian didn't flinch. "I do. He's a very good man." "He is," Emma agreed. "He's the best daddy in the whole world, and he helps people, which makes him even better. That's one of the things I admire most about him." "Do you help people too?" "I try to. I run a big company, and I want to make sure everyone who works there is treated fairly and kindly." Emma considered this seriously. "That's a good job. Helping people is the most important job there is." She paused, then added, "Mrs. Patterson says butterflies help flowers grow even though they're small. She says everyone can help no matter how small they are." Vivian glanced at Daniel with surprise and delight. "Your teacher sounds very wise." "She is. Almost as wise as my daddy." Emma returned to her coloring, apparently satisfied that Vivian had passed whatever test she'd been administering. Later, after Emma was in bed, Vivian and Daniel sat in the small living room drinking coffee and talking quietly. "She's amazing," Vivian said. "Wise and kind and completely unpretentious. You've done an incredible job raising her." "She raised herself mostly. I just tried not to screw it up too badly." "Don't sell yourself short. That kid knows she's loved and safe and valued. That doesn't happen by accident." Vivian set down her coffee cup. "Daniel, I know we said slow, and I meant that. But I want you to know that this. She gestured around the apartment toward Emma's room. This is what I want. Not fancy dinners or corporate galas or the CEO lifestyle. This. Real life with real people who care about each other. I haven't had that in 10 years, and being here with you and Emma reminds me how much I've missed it. Daniel reached over and took her hand, the gesture feeling natural now. You're welcome here anytime. Both of you are welcome in whatever life we build together, if that's where this is heading. I think it might be, Vivian said softly. If you'll have me. I think we will. 6 months later, Daniel stood in his new office. He'd needed bigger space for his expanded team, reviewing the quarterly ethics report. Complaint resolution rates had improved by 70%. Employee satisfaction scores were up. The company had implemented every policy recommendation he'd made, and other tech companies were starting to reach out, asking how Hale Industries had created such a dramatic cultural shift. The answer was simple but not easy. They decided to care, to treat people like they mattered, to prioritize dignity over convenience and truth over optics. Amanda Peterson had accepted a position back at Hale Industries in a different department with a significant raise. She'd stopped by Daniel's office the previous week just to say thank you again, to tell him that being able to come to work without fear had changed her life. Miguel Santos had been promoted to safety coordinator for the warehouse, using his experience to prevent others from facing the dangers he'd flagged. The employees who'd been failed by the old system were thriving under the new one. Vivian appeared in his doorway holding 2 cups of coffee, a routine they'd developed over the months of working together and growing closer. They were careful at the office, professional, appropriate, mindful of boundaries. But after work, they were building something real. Vivian had dinner at Daniel's apartment twice a week. Emma had started calling her Miss V and asking when she was coming over next. They weren't rushing toward anything, just letting the relationship develop at its own pace. Big news, Vivian said, handing him a coffee. The board just approved your proposal for the ethics mentorship program. Full funding, 18 months to implement, partnership with 3 universities to develop curriculum. Daniel felt a surge of satisfaction. The mentorship program would train the next generation of ethics professionals, creating a pipeline of people who understood that corporate accountability mattered. That's huge. It's brilliant, like everything you've proposed. Vivian sat in the chair across from his desk, the one she'd occupied dozens of times now. Daniel, I need to tell you something. The board wants me to do a TED Talk about the culture transformation here. They want it to be both of us, actually. CEO and ethics director talking about how we rebuilt company culture from the ground up. Public speaking in front of thousands of people? That's a hard pass. I told them you'd say that, but think about it. This isn't about us. It's about showing other companies that change is possible, that treating employees with dignity isn't just ethical, it's profitable. We have the data to prove it. We could help reshape corporate culture across entire industries. Daniel considered this. The idea of standing on a stage in front of thousands of people terrified him. But the idea of helping more Amandas, more Miguels, more employees who'd been failed by systems that prioritize profit over people, that mattered more than his discomfort. Okay, he said, but you're doing most of the talking. Vivian's smile was radiant. Deal, though I reserve the right to throw to you for the most compelling parts. Your story about being suspended despite video evidence proving your innocence, that needs to be told. Fine, but I'm writing my own sections. No corporate speak. I wouldn't have it any other way. That evening, Daniel picked up Emma from after-school care and took her to the park. It was May now, spring in full bloom, and Emma wanted to look for butterflies. They found several small white ones dancing between flowers, exactly like the ones from Mrs. Patterson's lessons months ago. Daddy, look! Emma pointed excitedly. They're helping the flowers grow just like Mrs. Patterson said. They sure are, baby girl. Emma watched the butterflies for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. You know what Mrs. Patterson told us last week? She said butterflies start as caterpillars, and they have to change completely before they can fly. She said the change is hard and scary, but it makes them into something beautiful that helps the whole garden. Daniel sat beside his daughter on the park bench, struck by the metaphor. He'd been a caterpillar once, just a driver, invisible, powerless, going through the motions of survival. The suspension had felt like destruction, like his world dissolving. But maybe it had been transformation instead. Maybe being broken down had allowed him to rebuild into something that could actually make a difference. That's a pretty smart observation, Emma. I know. I'm almost 7 now. I'm very smart. Emma grinned at him. Hey, Daddy, can Miss V come to my birthday party next month? You want her there? Yeah. She's nice and she makes you smile your special smile and she brings good presents. Emma's 7-year-old logic was impeccable. Plus, I think you love her. Daniel's breath caught. What makes you say that? Because you look at her the same way you look at me. Like she makes you happy just by being there. And you told me love means not letting go of people even when things are hard. You and Miss V don't let go of each other, so that means you love each other. Out of the mouths of babes, Daniel thought. His daughter had just articulated what he'd been feeling but hadn't quite admitted to himself. He did love Vivian, her courage, her vulnerability, her fierce commitment to doing right by her employees. He loved the way she listened to Emma talk about school. He loved her terrible cooking and her quiet determination and the way she looked at him like he was someone worth seeing. Yeah, Emma, I think I do love her. Good, because she loves you too. I can tell. Emma stood up, ready to chase more butterflies. You should probably tell her that. Mrs. Patterson says people should say important things out loud so everyone knows. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel texted Vivian. Can we talk tomorrow? Something important. Her response came immediately. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Better than fine. Just something I need to say in person. My office or yours? Somewhere private, your place? 7 p.m. I'll order dinner. The next evening, Daniel stood in Vivian's penthouse, the same apartment where this whole complicated journey had started, and tried to figure out how to say what he'd come to say. Vivian was in the kitchen attempting to plate the Thai food she'd ordered, her hair in a messy bun, wearing jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like a CEO and everything like someone he wanted to come home to. Okay, you're making me nervous, Vivian said, abandoning the plates to face him. What's this important thing you need to say? Daniel took a breath, remembering Emma's advice. People should say important things out loud. I love you. Vivian went very still. What? I love you. Not just as a colleague or a friend or someone I'm dating. I'm in love with you. With your integrity and your courage and the way you care about doing the right thing even when it costs you. With how you are with Emma, patient and genuine and interested. With your terrible cooking and your brilliant mind and the way you look at me like I matter. Daniel stepped closer. I know it's complicated and the optics are messy and we're still figuring out how this works. But Emma helped me realize that love means not letting go of people even when things are hard. And Vivian, I don't want to let go of you. Vivian's eyes were bright with tears. Daniel Cross, you've just given me possibly the most perfect declaration of love in the history of declarations. She crossed the distance between them, taking both his hands. I love you too. I've been trying not to say it because I was worried about pressure or expectations or moving too fast. But I love you. I love your honesty and your principles and the way you see people. I love that you're an amazing father and a brilliant ethics director and the bravest person I know. I love you. They stood in the kitchen holding hands, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something real from complicated beginnings. Then Daniel pulled her close and kissed her, their first real kiss, months in the making, worth every second of waiting. When they finally broke apart, Vivian was smiling through tears. So what do we do now? Now we keep doing what we've been doing, taking it slow, being transparent, building something sustainable. But we do it knowing where we're heading. Daniel brushed a tear from her cheek. And eventually, when the time is right, I'd like you to be part of our family. Officially. Emma already considers you family, and so do I. I'd like that too. All of it. The slow build, the transparency, the future with you and Emma. Vivian kissed him again softly. Thank you for being brave enough to say it first. Emma told me to. Apparently 7-year-olds are wise about love. Apparently they are. 1 year later, Daniel stood in the same auditorium where Hale Industries held its anniversary gala, watching employees fill the seats for the first annual Ethics Awards ceremony. It had been his idea to publicly recognize employees who'd shown courage in reporting problems, who'd stood up for what was right, who'd helped build the new culture. Vivian had loved the concept immediately and given him full authority to implement it. The room was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the walls. This wasn't mandatory attendance. Employees had come because they wanted to be here, to celebrate the transformation of their workplace. Emma sat in the front row next to Vivian, both of them wearing matching butterfly pins that Emma had insisted on. His daughter was 7.5 now, wise beyond her years, thrilled to be at Daddy's important work party. Vivian caught his eye and smiled, and Daniel felt a surge of gratitude for this life they'd built together. The ceremony recognized 12 employees across different departments, people who'd reported safety violations, who'd stood up against discrimination, who'd helped colleagues in need. Each received a Crystal Butterfly Award and a bonus. Each got to tell their story. And each one mentioned feeling safe to speak up because they knew the company would actually listen now. The final award was special, the Amanda Peterson Courage Award, given to an employee who'd shown exceptional bravery in the face of workplace injustice. Amanda herself presented it, her voice steady and strong as she told her own story and introduced this year's recipient, a warehouse worker who'd reported a supervisor for falsifying safety records and refused to back down even when threatened with termination. As the ceremony ended and people stood applauding, Daniel felt Vivian slip her hand into his. They were careful about public displays at company events, conscious of perception. But this felt right. They were partners now, in work and in life, and there was no hiding that. "You did good," Vivian whispered. "This whole thing, this culture we've built, you did that." "We did that," Daniel corrected. "I just helped show what was possible. You made it real." Emma appeared beside them, tugging on Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy, can we go get ice cream now? You promised if I sat still for the whole ceremony we could get ice cream." "I did promise that, didn't I? And you always keep your promises. That's what makes you different." Daniel scooped Emma up, despite her protests that she was too big for that now. "You want to come get ice cream with us?" he asked Vivian. "Absolutely. Someone needs to make sure you two don't spoil your dinner." They left the auditorium together, CEO, ethics director, and the 7-year-old who'd taught them both that doing the right thing mattered more than anything else. Outside, Manhattan was in full spring bloom, the evening air warm and promising. As they walked toward the ice cream shop, Emma between them holding both their hands, Daniel thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that terrible morning waking up on Vivian's couch, suspended and accused, to this moment of genuine connection and purposeful work. From powerlessness to authority, from isolation to family, from simply surviving to actually thriving. "Daddy, look!" Emma pointed at a butterfly that had landed on a nearby flower. "It's helping the flower grow." "It sure is, baby girl." Mrs. Patterson says butterflies remind us that change is scary but beautiful, and that even small things can make big differences if they're brave enough to try. Emma looked up at both of them seriously. "You're both like butterflies. You changed scary things into beautiful things. You helped lots of people grow." Vivian squeezed Daniel's hand, her eyes bright with emotion. "Your daughter is remarkably wise." "She is. Gets it from her teacher." Daniel smiled down at Emma. "But she's right about the important part. We didn't let go of people. We didn't let go of each other. And that made all the difference." They reached the ice cream shop as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Emma ordered strawberry as always. Vivian tried to be adventurous with lavender honey. Daniel stuck with his usual coffee. They sat in the window booth, Emma chattering about the ceremony and butterflies and her upcoming school project, while Daniel and Vivian listened and smiled and built the kind of ordinary, beautiful moments that made a life. Later that night, after Emma was asleep in her room, she had her own room now in the bigger apartment Daniel and Vivian had rented together 3 months earlier. Daniel and Vivian sat on their balcony looking at the city lights. "I've been thinking about something," Vivian said quietly. "The TED Talk is in 2 months. After that, the board wants to expand the ethics program to our international offices. That would mean travel, maybe 1 week a month, building teams in London and Singapore and Sao Paulo. That's huge, amazing opportunity. It is. But it would also mean time away from you and Emma, and I'm not sure I want that. Vivian turned to face him. Daniel, I've spent 10 years building this company, proving myself, sacrificing everything for professional success. And it's been meaningful, but it's also been lonely. These past 18 months with you and Emma, this is the happiest I've been in a decade. I don't want to sacrifice that for another corporate achievement. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time to delegate more, to hire a strong executive team and actually trust them to run things while I focus on strategy and culture, to stop trying to do everything myself and build a life that has room for more than just work. She took his hand. I want mornings with Emma before school. I want dinners at home instead of business meetings. I want a life with you that isn't constantly interrupted by corporate emergencies. Daniel pulled her close. We can build that. Together. The ethics program doesn't need me traveling internationally either. Rebecca and James can handle the international expansion. We've built a strong enough team. Maybe it's time we both step back slightly and let other people carry some of the weight. You'd be okay with that? You've worked so hard to build this program. And it's working. It's sustainable. It doesn't need me micromanaging every detail anymore. Daniel kissed her forehead. Emma's only 7. She needs us present, not constantly traveling. And honestly, I need us too. I want the life we're building more than I want career advancement. Same, Vivian said softly. Definitely same. They sat in comfortable silence, planning a future that balanced meaningful work with genuine life, professional achievement with personal happiness. It wasn't about choosing one or the other. It was about building something that honored both. 2 months later, Daniel and Vivian stood on the TED stage in front of 5,000 people and millions more watching online. Vivian spoke first, outlining the business case for ethical culture. Then Daniel told his story, the suspension, the investigation, the choice to rebuild the system that had failed him instead of walking away. He talked about Amanda Peterson and Miguel Santos and all the employees who'd been brave enough to speak up. He talked about Emma's butterfly wisdom and the importance of not letting go of people. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes, but more importantly, the talk went viral. Within a week, 20 companies had reached out asking for consultation. Within a month, 3 business schools had added it to their ethics curriculum. Within a year, major corporations across multiple industries were implementing similar programs, creating independent ethics teams with real authority. Change rippled outward, one company at a time, one employee at a time, proving that integrity wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. 5 years after that terrible morning on Vivian's couch, Daniel stood in his backyard. They'd bought a house in Westchester with actual yard space, watching Emma's 12th birthday party. She'd invited 15 friends, and they were currently engaged in an elaborate game involving butterflies and flowers and saving the world through kindness. Emma had grown into a remarkable kid, smart, compassionate, still convinced that helping people was the most important job in the world. Vivian appeared beside him, handing him a beer. They'd gotten married 2 years earlier in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. Emma had been the flower girl and had given a speech about butterflies that made everyone cry. She's amazing, Vivian said, watching Emma organize her friends. We did good. You did good. She loves you just as much as she loves me. We did it together, like everything else. Vivian leaned against him. I got a call today from the White House. They want to talk about implementing federal ethics standards based on our model. Presidential appointment to some advisory committee. Are you going to do it? Only if you do it with me. We're a package deal now. Daniel smiled. Always have been. From the beginning. That night, after the party was over and Emma was in bed exhausted but happy, Daniel sat in his office reviewing the latest ethics metrics. Complaint resolution at 98%. Employee satisfaction scores the highest in company history. 3 major lawsuits avoided because problems were caught and addressed early. A culture that actually valued people instead of just claiming to. He thought about that terrible morning 5 years ago, waking up on a stranger's couch with his career ending before his eyes. He thought about the choice to stay quiet or speak up, to accept injustice or fight for change. He thought about all the moments since then where he could have given up walked away, chosen the easier path. But he'd learned something important from a 6-year-old's wisdom about butterflies. Transformation was painful and scary, but it was necessary to become something that could help things grow. And once you'd transformed, once you'd found your wings, you had a responsibility to use them for good. Daniel picked up his phone and texted Emma, even though she was just upstairs sleeping. "Thanks for teaching me about butterflies, baby girl. You were right about everything." In the morning, he'd find a reply waiting. "I know, Daddy. I'm 12 now. I'm basically an expert on everything, but you're still the best butterfly I know. Love you." Daniel smiled and put his phone away, grateful for this life they'd built from impossible beginnings, for the family they'd created from unlikely circumstances, for the proof that doing the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it cost everything, eventually gave back more than it took. Outside his window, a moth fluttered against the glass, drawn to the light. Daniel watched it for a moment, then turned off his desk lamp and went upstairs to bed, where Vivian was already sleeping peacefully. He climbed in beside her, her hand finding his automatically, even in sleep, and closed his eyes. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more people to help, more broken systems to fix. But tonight, he had everything that mattered: a daughter who believed in kindness, a partner who believed in integrity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd built something that would outlast him. A culture where people actually mattered, where truth counted more than convenience, where doing the right thing was rewarded instead of punished. He'd started as a driver and become a director. He'd gone from powerless to empowered. But the most important transformation was simpler than that. He'd learned to be brave enough not to let go of people. And in not letting go, he'd found everything worth holding on to. Just like the butterflies. Just like Emma had always said,